price has dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's a Thursday. It's a very busy Thursday. U.S. men's national team in action later today against Honduras, CONCACAF Nations League semifinal, a meaningful game. We'll get into that at 9:30 with Bart Keeler. We're going to hear about the USL Championship with friend of the show, Wilmer Cabrera, down in Rio Grande Valley, and they have gotten started off with a good season so far. We'll hear from Wilmer about everything out in Texas. We will get you caught up on everything else in USL Championship. We'll talk MLS. We'll talk everything else going on this morning as much as we can in a 2-hour package because it's a lot to talk about. There have been requests, and John, you're going to have to break this one down for me.
Okay.
What in the world is going on in Omaha right now with Union Omaha and players being implicated in things?
Okay, from the Omaha paper yesterday, and the World Herald and Aaliyah Conley came up with this. And it appears that Abdul Osumanu, who started the first 5 matches for Union Omaha this season, has been charged with 2 counts of mail fraud, 2 counts of wire fraud, money laundering conspiracy, and receipt of stolen money in the district court for the Southern District of West Virginia.
Okay.
It is alleged he has been indicted on federal charges in connection with 2 internet romance scams.
What?
That authorities say defrauded 2 people of more than $200,000.
Wait a minute. What is an internet
I have so many
romance scam? And yes, Jared, I have questions too. I'm confused.
Okay. So the U.S. Attorney's Office announced indictments of Osumanu and 8 other men who are citizens of Nigeria, Ghana, or the U.S., live in various cities around the country. The crimes were similar in nature, online romance scams to persuade victims to send money, and totaled from over 200 victims about $2.5 million.
200 victims?
But the officials said that the cases weren't related. All 9 men were taken into custody. Unsealed indictment. Osumanu and another defendant created a fake profile in 2017 of Amida Ibrahim, a woman who said she was a Canadian-born chef who lived in Ghana. Amida Ibrahim, in quotation marks, contacted an Indiana resident through an online messaging app. 8 to 10 months into this online relationship, Amida Ibrahim asks the Indiana resident to send her $200 for dorm expenses. The person sent that amount through Walmart with additional money and iTunes cards. Summer of 2018.
Okay.
Ibrahim tells the person that she had inherited $7.5 million in gold bars, but had to pay inheritance tax to claim it.
Okay.
So Ibrahim, in quotation marks, told the person to write checks to Abdul Osumanu because he was a friend who would forward her the money.
Oh, that's not good when you're trying to become a professional player and people are going to know your name.
It gets better.
Oh, okay.
The Indiana resident wrote a check for $3,000, mailed it to an address in Huntington, West Virginia back in September of 2018, according to the indictment. Osumanu played... Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was about to ask. Like, what was he doing at this stage?
Osumanu was playing soccer at Marshall.
Okay.
And the resident continued to write checks every few weeks for various amounts to Osumanu. One of them was for $10,000.
Okay.
In April 2019, a plan for Ibrahim, in quotation marks, and the Indiana resident to meet in person fell through.
Of course it did.
Communication stopped in July of 2019.
Okay.
In January of 2020, according to the indictment, Osumanu and another defendant created another fake profile known as, quote, Jack London, end quote.
Jack London, action star.
Exactly. Okay. And contacted a California woman. What was this alleged gentleman's name?
Jack London, action star.
Said he was a manager for Kane's Investment Fund's management portfolio in L.A., and was in contact with someone in California. After the relationship turned romantic, according to the Omaha paper, our gentleman told the woman he had an investment opportunity worth $1.8 million, but required an upfront fee payment of $46,000.
I have an investment opportunity. I'm Jack London.
Yes. It was transferred directly to a Chase bank account of the co-defendant, who then transferred a portion of the money, according to court documents, to our friend Osamanu. The indictment listed the money subject to forfeiture in connection with the case to at least just under $25,000 and at least another $189,000 for the other defendant, totaling $214,000.
Okay.
That's where we are.
Wow. I didn't see that one coming in USL League One this week.
No, I did not. I did not either, sir. That's
something. Tommy, I am absolutely with you. Who has this kind of money to throw around on internet romances? Not me.
And I mean, these are checks of like $5,700, $10,000.
Yeah.
I mean, this is some substantial cash, obviously, as we had discovered this morning from our friends at the Omaha World Herald.
Yeah.
But you'd think that after a while of, I'm looking forward to it. Hey, can you send me this? I need to cover this. Hey, can you send me this? I need to cover this. And then the money balloons to 4 and 5 figures that you might think that something's up.
You would probably think that, yes. That would be a safe assumption. The crazy thing, I'm pulling up Union Omaha's stats for the season. Osamanu is 24. He has started 5 games this year. He has been very, very good this year. Yep. SofaScore has him rated at 7.3 for the season, one of their best players. He's been over a 7 in every game except for the one against the Greenville Triumph. Winning 70% of his duels. I guess that's no surprise. Wow. Like, it's not some random person doing this. It's a guy who's maybe one of the better defenders in the USL League One.
Yeah.
Whew. Didn't see that.
Financially benefiting by falsely cultivating relationships using online or text messages.
Jarrett, this is a new one for soccer down here. We've never had one of these before. I don't even know where to go.
There's not a contingency plan for this.
No.
We don't have a FEMA book for scandals. And if we did, it doesn't have a page like this.
No, we don't have that one yet. Be very curious. Has Union Omaha said anything about this yet?
No, they have not. They have not. They haven't said anything, but they posted a statement.
They haven't said
media.
anything, but they've said something? What?
Well, no, they haven't come out and said anything publicly. They posted a statement on social media last Thursday afternoon, Union Omaha became aware of a pending legal action involving one of our players. We are currently gathering information and are fully cooperating with authorities, end quote. The GM for Union Omaha declined comment on the nature of the charges. Peter Marlett did say Osamanu had been removed from team activities, including practices and games, pending the outcome of the court proceedings.
Wow.
Osamanu has not been released from Union Omaha.
I mean, there's legal ramifications there. I think people always jump on stuff like that. And I mean, there is a legal process to follow out here. They might not be able to break their contract with him at this point because there might not be anything that actually has happened to breach it yet. He's accused of these things at this point. Has he been arrested?
Yes.
Okay. So that's where it stands.
Appeared in federal court Tuesday afternoon, the same day that the U.S. Attorney's Office announced the indictments.
All right. Yes, he started the scam while in college, Thomas. Continued it while he was playing professional soccer in Omaha, Nebraska. That's an impressive one. Add that to the list. That's a new one on the bingo card. Jeez. I don't really know where to exactly go from there. There's no transition coming out of that, so we're just going to jump into something else. Hey, Jarrett, did you hear about Quentin Westberg from Toronto?
I did. I have questions.
You have questions? Do you have questions about his statement? Now, this was with a French media outlet, ActuFoot, and just if you're wondering why Quentin Westberg is doing interviews with a French media outlet, he played in France his whole career. He is a former U.S. Youth International, but he played in France for his whole career before coming to Toronto. He has not played this season at all. He did arrive to training camp late for personal reasons. He was very, very good last year, and it's all been kind of strange. Well, this is the quote that I think Jarrett has questions about. Now, the interview, it talks about MLS and Westberg's thoughts on it, and he did single out Atlanta as having, an atmosphere that would fit anywhere in the world, and some other markets as well. So he talked about all of that. He said that the differences between the level inside the teams is more jarring than it was in France for him. Like, you've got really good players who would fit anywhere, and then you've got some players who are not at the same level, et cetera, et cetera. But this is what he had to say to a question translated, is the championship started a little over a month ago. What are your goals for the season? This is what Quentin said. We're relocated to Florida with a new coach, a new style of play. We're almost a different club. The Toronto club where I arrived for the game, the city, and everything else seems different to me. There is just the badge that does not change. Currently, I do not know where we are going. We went from a style of play based on possession to a vertical game based on high pressing with a team of ball players. For now, for me, the goal is to survive the season. Laughs. Ha ha ha. Jarrett, what are your questions?
My questions are, Toronto, this is directed to you, front office.
Okay.
What you doing?
I mean, they did it. It's nothing new. They did this a while ago.
I mean, if that's the case, if this is you kind of changing things up, cool. But how much time are you going to actually give Chris Armas? Because if this is what you're going to do, it sounds like it needs to be a multi-year project.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to suspect that that's not the case.
As long as they're approaching it that way, cool. But just be prepared for the mortar fire that's going to come in the meantime.
Yeah, look, I think everybody's jumped on this the wrong way. If Ali Curtis hired Chris Armas expecting him to play one way, and he's not, and he's doing something completely different, and they somehow didn't know that was going to happen, that's on Toronto. If this is part of the process of changing the way that they're going to play and be built, and as many said in the offseason, this is not a new statement being brought up, of they're getting old, they need to recycle, they need to revamp the roster. Okay, if this is part of that process, and a striker who has been injured consistently for years now is not happy with things, he's not going to be happy in a high-pressing style of play, because I don't know if he can high-press at this point, and a goalkeeper who is not being rated by the manager, who has not played 1 minute this season, if the two of them are chirping about things, should you really be upset or surprised?
Next question. Like, that's my thing is like, and my question for you, Toronto, is this the plan? And it's not to say like, hey, Toronto, you absolutely got it wrong. Like, can you please reinforce the plan?
Yeah, I need some info. Info on your intel.
But no, this is the thing. Why do you guys need info? Like, why would you believe? And this is where I thought the narrative was so wrong yesterday about this. Why would you believe that the front office doesn't know what they did? They hired somebody who, look, we ask. It's a valid question because Chris Armas had worked in the Red Bull system. Was he going to be a Red Bull high-pressure kind of manager? Well, the answer is yes. That's what Quentin Westberg's saying. That's what we're seeing so far. I would assume that those conversations were had with Ali Curtis, who was also in the Red Bull organization. Why are we jumping to the conclusion that, the front office didn't know this is how they were going to play? Why is that even a question at this point? They're 11 games in. I would hope that they're on that same page. If they're not, there's bigger problems that can't be fixed by any of us talking about it. I would hope they know what they're doing at this point in that regard. And if the collateral damage is this kind of stuff, well, it's not fun, but we have seen these things happen before. I think the idea that we have seen people put out there that, they didn't know what they were doing when they hired Chris Armas, I would hope that they did.
Yeah, it's like, no, we're just going to bring Chris Armas in regardless. We're not going to interview him. Just do your thing.
It makes no sense that they would go hire somebody and not ask how he's going to play.
Yeah.
Jeez. Anyway.
No, but it's just, I think.
But they don't have to come out and tell you, John, how they're going to play. That's what you said. That's why I'm reacting this way.
Right.
Like, it's not the front office's job to reinforce that, hey, we're not dumb. You normally don't have that press conference. We know what we're doing.
But sometimes folks need to have that wall that they've put up broken down just a little bit. Sometimes you have to dial it back to zero and sit here and say, even as illogical as it is, and how counter programming it is, sometimes you just have to come out and say, look, we're being patient here. Basically, it's that vote of support. It's the vote of confidence for Chris Armas, but in this case, you're not going to fire him like 6 days later. It's the vote of confidence.
There shouldn't even be a question about firing Chris Armas right now. Like that.
I know.
But this is, John, this is what I'm saying. This has been the narrative since this interview came out with Quentin Westberg. Like, Chris Armas is crazy. Chris Armas is who Chris Armas is. Mm-hmm. But there's not a surprise about that. And the last person who should be surprised is the front office.
Mm-hmm.
So they already came out and said they don't need to give a vote of confidence. Like, that's absurd at this point. They already said the things they needed to say after the Josie thing blew up. Which, again, Josie having a blow up is not exactly news.
No.
Quentin Westberg's a different conversation, but he's also not playing. So, like, there's weird elements with it. Now, Bernd has a point that you can absolutely go into about why would you switch to a pressing style with this roster and you're not able to remake it yet. Now, you do have a bunch of young guys coming through that can play this style and beat Club Leon playing this style, by the way, in the CONCACAF Champions League. You do have a young generation coming through. If that is the long-term plan, and it's probably a 2-year process of young talent coming through, we're going to get them playing in this way. We're going to have to phase out the older talent. Okay. And that's what it would appear to be if you're looking at this in any kind of a deep way. A striker who has had issues with this team before and a goalkeeper who's not playing are not exactly the people that you should be shocked by anything they're saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To now come out with these ideas that the front office has to explain themselves, the front office didn't know what they were doing, they didn't know what they were getting in Chris Armas, like all those things, those are the least likely scenarios. The most likely scenario is there's some players who don't like their new position in this team or what they're being asked to do, and they're chirping about it. Because that happens all the time.
Yeah, it does.
So, I mean, I think the more the front office comes out and says, well, you know, we back this and we know what we're doing, and blah, blah, the more they look incompetent. Now, everybody's going to do their thing, but I think you have to, as we said at the very beginning of this, you have to give Chris Armas time if you're going to hire him. Because they had to know, forget the play style. Forget that part of it for a second. They had to know that it was going to be a process to win people over with going from Greg Vanney, who won trophies and was a far better tactician than he got credit for and was not always embraced by the Toronto fans, which made no sense to me ever. But somebody who won.
He's getting his glow up in L.A.
He is.
Good for Greg.
Yes. And he won. And you hired somebody in Chris Armas who did not win at Red Bulls. That was already going to be a hard sell. So they had to know it was going to take time just on that aspect of it. Forget the way they're playing at. Put that to the side. So I don't think this is like 10 games and you're out kind of idea. That doesn't make any sense in any form of this.
No.
I think this is part of the process. It's messier than they would like. And I don't know what you could have done to avoid that with some of the figures involved. But if he has to turn to the kids to play these minutes because they can play the style and they're not going to run their mouth, then maybe that's what Chris Armas should do. And if you're going to do that, Jarrett, when is a better time to do it than when you can't even play in your home city anyway?
Yeah, I mean, it's all just feels kind of weird, but just because I guess part of me just didn't peg them for, changing everything they were doing, or potentially changing what they're doing because of how it had worked. I mean, Toronto's been right there in conference finals, in MLS Cup, year after year. I guess it's kind of put in perspective, like, oh no, they really are gonna change things up in terms of play style, how they're doing things. Can't speak to culturally because I'm not in the building, but I guess it just kind of does bring it into. It was in focus before, but bring it to oh, you need to pay attention to the fact that they are going to change what they've been doing. They didn't go get another Greg Vanney. They went and got Chris Armas. And it was obvious from the outset that things were going to change. It just kind of feels more, oh, no, things are really going to change.
Yeah, I don't know why they did either. I mean, I think we said that when the Armas stuff came up in the first place. It's like, this doesn't really seem to fit in any way of this. But when they made the hire, I think there had to be at least a pretty good guess, unless Chris Armas is going to manage in a different way than he has. And I guess that was a possibility coming out of the Red Bull organization. I thought maybe that's what he does. No, he's leaning into what he knows right now, and that's the way he's going to have this team play. And you have to assume that Ali Curtis is on board with that because he hired him. Then they're going to go from what they've done in the past. Now, they do have Alejandro Pozuelo. They do have Jefferson Soteldo that they've invested in heavily. Those are two guys that I think can play in this style, but aren't maybe the prototypes for it. So is there something coming that adds to it? Who knows? I mean, Chris Armas isn't that old of a manager. But I think there had to be an expectation that things were going to change. So it's not exactly a surprise that these things are happening. I'm a little surprised that the reaction is so over the top to it. I mean, backup goalkeeper who had been the starter is not playing now, and he talked about how they're changing their play style. Yeah, they do have to sort this out at some point with, all right, now do you need to move Quentin Westberg, send him back to France, send him somewhere else? You already needed to move Josie. That probably needed to happen anyway. Get it done so you can now continue the way you're going and do what you want to do if you're Toronto. I know what Burns said in the Twitch pitch, and I agree. Toronto's a team that has spent a lot of money. Normally the teams that spend like that aren't the ones that go to the high-pressing style. Totally agree. I'm surprised by it too. But I think we can see that's what is where it's going now. These things aren't exactly a shock. So I don't think Toronto has to explain themselves. I think they need to make the right moves and get this thing moving. More than anything, they need to get healthy.
Yeah. I mean, you've got, as the lawn guys start at my place and probably will be at your place by the end of the show.
No, that's not how it works. Don't get people confused.
I mean, you have the young guys like Marshall Ruddy, and we've seen Tsubasa Endo for the last couple of years, and Jacob Schaffelberg. There are young guys that are a part of this process.
Endo's like 28. Leave him out of it.
Okay, so Marshall Ruddy, Schaffelberg. But
there's a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch of young guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's a boatload of kids that are a part of this, and you would think that there is a process in a transition to get these young guys who've been a part of the learning system, they've been a part of all of this, to get them integrated into what's going on. And you're going to have that rough transition time of them getting adjusted to what's going on in Major League Soccer and doing it full time instead of just coming in for 10 or 15 minutes. So there's going to be that transition time. And I guess that's where we're either leaning into or leaning hard into right now with Toronto. But with a city and a fan base that is beyond gripping right now, it somewhat makes sense with the other sports in town in addition to this, that you're having this high-powered reaction that they're having right now, not understanding what's currently in play with Chris Armas.
Anyway, I'm not sure if Toronto fans are having a high-powered reaction. It feels like the national media who covers MLS is having the high-powered reaction. We'll have to see. Burned, I mean, I agree with you. If this bet that Ali Curtis and Chris Armas are making doesn't pay off, they won't be there for a long period of time. It's going to have to show some progress here quickly because, Toronto's not going to be happy with going back to being an also-ran. The ownership won't. There will be pressure on them, and we'll see if they get it right. I think my reaction is that why is this such a shock that they're doing this when it was kind of obvious with the hires that things were going to change? Everybody's acting like, oh my gosh, I didn't see this coming. Well, it's a pretty safe bet. So let's see if it works. It could be absolutely the wrong way to go. Okay, a couple other things before we get Bart Keeler on to talk U.S. men's national team at 9:30. Jarrett, the French Federation has come up with their plan to take Ligue 1 down to 18 teams rather than 20. It's coming here in a couple of seasons, and they will have, I think it's 22 and 23. Yes, 2022 and 2023. That season, they will have 4 relegations from the top flight, 2 promotions. That will take them down to 18. The second division will stay at 20 teams. They will be the second first division in Europe in the major leagues to go to an 18-team league rather than a 20. They'll join Germany in that. Do you think more will follow this?
God, I hope so. I don't want 20 teams in every first division. It's just so damn cluttered. I'd rather have fewer teams, more matchups between teams. Maybe the schedule doesn't get so damn compressed, and maybe you let guys breathe a bit, especially if you're going to have gummy bear cups all over the damn place.
France does have their own version of a gummy bear cup. That's true.
Add a little more stakes into this. Less meat between the bread of Champions League and the bottom soggy bun of relegation. Take some of that middle ground out of it.
I don't hate it. I mean, if you're going to have more games in Europe,
bring it down to 16 or 14 teams. Let's get fun.
Okay, settle down, Scotland guy. Settle down. I think 18 is right. So 34 regular season games rather than 38. If you're going to have increased amount of games in Europe, I think it fits. I think it works. Don't do some weird split thing like Scotland does. Come on now. All right, Jared.
Yeah,
the record, Scotland has 12 teams.
Yes, that is true. They do.
They should have more. Come on. No split.
That makes it fun.
What's up with your Celtic manager, Jarrett? Why don't you guys have one yet? Come on. No split. No split. Why don't you embrace a manager at Celtic, Jarrett? What's going on?
They're trying to get him his UEFA license, UEFA waiver, because he doesn't have a UEFA license.
They're trying to get waivers on this guy. Come on now. Come on.
And because Eddie Howe was supposed to be the guy, and then negotiations just didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah. Ange Postecoglou is the guy that they want to hire. He is currently in charge of the Yokohama F. Marinos in Japan. He's done very well in Australia as well. The appeal to get his exemption to be able to become the team's manager could take several weeks. He doesn't hold the pro license according to UEFA. Jarrett, what happens if their appeal is unsuccessful and they wait several weeks for this to happen, and then what?
Rui Faria.
I'm going to give him your phone number.
No, I'm not taking that job. No way. I want nothing to do with that.
Oh, too bad. You're on the list. Congratulations.
No,
Good luck.
My people will decline any inquiries from Celtic. It's not happening. I will turn that job down just like Eddie Howe did.
Well, Jared, if it's any consolation, according to Record Sport, they've held tentative talks with Rui Faria, who is currently a free agent after his time at Qatari outfit Al Dahail.
Why not? I'm going to go think about this for a while you discuss U.S. soccer things.
Yeah, why don't you go do that, Jared? Let us know if you find a manager for Celtic while you're out there.
I'm going to go marinate on that. You know what? Trae Young can manage Celtic.
Sure, I'd trust him more than this guy who doesn't have his pro license. Just saying.
All right.
See you, Jarrett.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, let's get Bart Keeler on the line and talk U.S. men's national team. Big game today, U.S. and Honduras CONCACAF Nations League semifinals. First meaningful game in a long time. It's an interesting one for Greg Berhalter because this game means something, and I'm trying to remember the last time he had one of these. Summer of 2019. Bart, when was the last time the U.S. played a meaningful game?
Well, the last time we had a meaningful game was November 2019. That was that the Nations League window, the final one of the group stage, where we had to turn around and beat Canada after losing to them in Toronto. Beat them 4-1 in Orlando, and then went to the Cayman Islands and got a 4-0 win over Cuba. So, it's been a very long time since we've had a match of any sort of importance, and it is finally here. We finally get to play or watch a team play something that means something. It's not a test. It's not an experiment. It's a match that you have to win.
So how important is it?
Well, that's for me. It's very important. You cannot lose to Honduras in a competitive match. You cannot miss a chance to play for a trophy in this region. I think that even if you want to talk about the sadness that was how we ended things in the World Cup qualifying cycle in 2017, people forget that summer we lifted a Gold Cup trophy. And
actually, Bart, hold that thought for just 1 second. We got a little bit of breaking news. Breaking news, as reported last night by The Athletic. Jack Collison is the new Atlanta United 2 manager. It's been made official this morning, just a couple of minutes ago. He has been in charge of the U17s with Atlanta United. In the academy, he is moving up to the first team. That is the exact same trajectory that Stephen Glass went through. He was managing the U17s, got the 2's job going into the 2019 season. It's not the exact same, but it also shows Tony Annan going when the interim job opened up when Stephen Glass went up to the first team. Tony Annan, the academy director, went in. So to see academy movement from youth teams or director roles into the 2's is what we've seen on the player side. It makes total sense on the manager side. He joined in August of 2019, and this is his first senior coaching job. Former player with West Ham, obviously, Bournemouth, Wigan, 17 caps for Wales internationally. Now, a couple other changes. Omar Jarun is joining the Atlanta United 2 staff as the interim assistant coach. Henry Apalou is leaving the club for another coaching opportunity. So stay tuned on where Henry could end up. Henry's been a huge part of all of this. Jarun is a former Atlanta Silverbacks player going further back in the day. He's also worked at Peachtree City MOBA. He's currently the U13 academy coach, fairly new to it. So he will stay kind of in an interim role, handling both until Collison kind of fleshes out his squad. So we'll talk more about that. We're going to try to get Jack on for an interview here soon, so stay tuned on that. But breaking news, Jack Collison is officially the Atlanta United 2 manager going forward. All right, sorry, Bart. I wasn't sure if that was going to drop this morning. We'll follow up on that as we go this morning. But let's get back into today in this game. Like I'm with you. I think it is a critical game. I think it is a game that, you know, Berhalter said we're not connecting it to results of World Cup qualifying, but this is your launching pad for the World Cup qualification process. I think you have to, right?
All four of these teams that are at the Nations League Final Four are the teams that automatically qualified. Well, 4 of the 5 teams that automatically qualified for the final round of World Cup qualifying in CONCACAF. So if you want to qualify for the World Cup, you're going to have to get results against these types of teams. And I think that you look back at what the United States has historically done against Honduras, it's a team that has given us problems because they are pretty talented individually, but they know how to play together as a team for the most part. And very specifically to the Honduras game, you have a little bit of looming dark cloud based on what happened back in March when the Honduras knocked the U.S. U23 team out of Olympic qualification. So that kind of just adds, from a fan's perspective, this kind of desire to get revenge, but this desire to see the team actually get a result when it actually matters, because it does matter. There's a trophy on the line on Sunday. And yes, I know that this Nations League is new and weird and it stopped and started. But at the end of the day, you're the United States. You should be playing for trophies in the CONCACAF region.
So I guess I now have a two-pronged question, Bart, and it has to do with each team when it comes into this particular game. I'll just start with the big one. What worries you the most about the U.S. going into this match against Honduras, if anything?
So I think what worries me most about the U.S. Would probably be we still haven't seen a starting striker really emerge. I think it is absolutely Josh Sargent as the first choice striker, but that doesn't mean that he's been particularly great. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the conversation about who should it be. Not his fault, but he has been at a club situation that is dismal. Werder Bremen, I don't know if they actually have an understanding of how to win soccer games. It's been a while since they've been successful at that. And I think that has rubbed off on Sargent in a lot of ways. He wasn't super impressive on Sunday against Switzerland. I thought he was perfectly okay. I thought that he made runs that were good to see from a striker in this system. I thought, more importantly, he pressed very effectively against Switzerland. I think especially in that first half, we were very effective at doing that. And you've seen the U.S. in other games against good competition be able to at least press and disrupt their build-up out of the back. So I think that's the biggest thing is Josh Sargent is still needing to prove himself. And the backup striker, if you will, Jordan Siebatcheu, is relatively unproven as well, at least for the U.S. men's national team. So the striker position is one where I'm most concerned. And I think that's really the only thing in this match that the U.S. needs to be worried about their own game. Anyways, I think Honduras presents some challenges, but when you're looking internally, the striker position is the only spot on the field where it's a little concerning of how that's going to work. And I don't even think the number 6 right now for this game is the concern, because I don't think Honduras is going to want to have the ball in a build-up way. I think they want the ball, but I think they want the ball for different reasons than the United States does. And I don't think that missing Tyler Adams is going to be that big of a deal today, because I don't think that the qualities Tyler Adams brings to the game would be used to their best potential against Honduras.
Yeah, that's a key element, and it's an important one. And maybe it changes if the U.S. gets by Honduras, and then you're talking about a game with Mexico where the U.S. might not dominate possession. They should dominate possession here, based off the way Greg Berhalter wants to play, but also based off the way Honduras wants to play. They want to hit on the counter. They want to get Albert Delis out in transition. Are you at all worried about those moments where it could be Honduras outrunning wide against Serginho Dest and Anthony Robinson if those are the two starters at outside back?
Yeah, so I think that's the biggest concern when you look externally, when you look at Honduras and say, okay, what are they going to do and how can they hurt us? And I think before anyone says they're going to bunker, you can't call what Honduras does a bunker.
Nope.
They are very, what they try to do is wait. They sit and they're patient and they wait for you to make a mistake. And as soon as they do that, they want the ball and they're going forward. It is not a bunker. It is a very passive way to play soccer, but it's also a very smart way for them to play for what they have. And Albert Elise you saw him play in MLS for I think 3 or 4 years as a youngster, and now he's able to go to Portugal and do similar things in the Portuguese league. He's very fast. He's very good at getting behind players. And then, you have other players on this roster for Honduras who can hurt you. Romel Kyoto is one who, on the dribble especially, could hurt you. But when it comes to the outside backs, I think that is the one concern that you do have. But that's the risk-reward of what Berhalter wants to do and how you want to play. How many times have we seen that with Atlanta United this season where, your outside backs are getting up because that's what you want to do. You want to get them involved in possession. It comes down to being smart and not turning the ball over in bad places. And that's something that I will say against Switzerland was, of all the things, I thought we did pretty well in attacking, but of all the things we didn't do that well is we were a little impatient in possession. We tried to force opportunities, try to whip balls into the box when we didn't really need to. And I think against Honduras, you just need to be patient, keep possession, because with the creativity you have in this team, with the individual talent you have on this team, you're going to create a moment of brilliance for someone. You're going to create a moment of brilliance between a couple of players. I think back to, I think it was the Jamaica game where Josh Sargent and Brendan Aronson combine on a 1-2 at the top of the box, and Aronson scores. I think about Sebastian Lletget being able to combine with wingers and how he can get them in behind. Those individual moments of brilliance are what's going to carry the United States through, because you're allowing this team in this system finally to understand how to build up, but then understand how to play once they have the ball in the attacking third. And that's something that I will say that Berhalter has finally evolved to. It has become less scripted and less formulaic, and he's allowing the bright talents that we have to show why they're so good. So, do you want Sergiño Dest worried about Albert Elise running behind him? I mean, yeah, he needs to be aware of that. But do you also want Sergiño Dest and Christian Pulisic creating havoc for Honduras' right side? I think that's a much more dangerous possibility than the alternative of Honduras on a counterattack.
So you've mentioned a couple of players, and you've mentioned this game that matters a whole lot. Is there one aspect or one player that you're looking forward to seeing the most in a game that matters in this game situation coming up this weekend or coming up today?
Yeah, I think Christian Pulisic is the one, because the kid has played so many games that matters in his last 2 months between Champions League and Chelsea's been even still fighting for a Champions League spot in the Premier League. So to watch him hopefully be able to continue his clutch performances for the U.S. would be really cool. And then I'm going to give you two, because I think the next obvious answer is Sergiño Dest. I think Dest will line up on that left side. And I think watching Dest and Pulisic attack a team in tandem is quite fun to think about.
Yeah, it's a trickier game than I think when you just look at the two teams on paper, because it's meaningful for the U.S. It should be. I think, Berhalter trying to downplay it. I understand what he's doing, but I hope internally that's not the idea. For Honduras, this game's an opportunity to steal a win in the United States against a team that is higher ranked and a team that should win based on the talent. They're going to do whatever it takes to win. And this is the tough spot that Greg Berhalter's in after the last year. He needed 2020 to play games with this young team, to do the things that you've talked about, like, figure out how to attack in the final third, how to develop that patience, how to develop the chemistry, the trust in one another. That's gone, and it's not his fault, but it's going to affect a game like this one, potentially a final in Mexico, and then maybe some of the early games in World Cup qualifying. How do you think the U.S. handles the moment here? Because it's an important moment. I'm a little worried about the young team and the mentality going into this against a team that has no problem sitting back and defending and then breaking out and killing you on the counter.
Yeah, I think the one thing that gives me a little bit of hope is we have a lot of players who play at clubs who are pretty dominant in their leagues. Yep. Outside of Josh Sargent and Werder Bremen, everyone else on that front line pretty much plays plays for a club that is pretty well regarded in their league. So, Christian Pulisic playing a team that's going to sit low and maybe bunker a little bit. Well, that's no different than playing, a Sam Allardyce team or, a Newcastle team. So he should be used to that. Gio Reyna playing for Dortmund has encountered teams who are a little bit less aggressive or less passive with the ball. They're happy to let Dortmund have the ball, especially with the talent that Dortmund has to run at them. So, I think when you look at it that way, these players should be somewhat accustomed to a team that is not as willing to possess the ball as much. That said, Dortmund playing Schalke is different than the U.S. playing Honduras, where Honduras and other teams in CONCACAF have lesser regard for human life and, are not afraid to straight up just whack you for the hell of it, to be quite honest. And that is something that I'm concerned about, but I'm always concerned about when the U.S. plays a CONCACAF team, because you just look at the style of play and the attitude toward the sport between a Central American team and a European team. And these players are so used to being in a professional environment and playing against, other professionals and having all these expectations, but all these kind of built-in safeguards that when you get into CONCACAF, those just go away. And that is where I'm concerned. It's not about if they're bunkering. It's about what happens when Honduras starts practicing the dark arts of CONCACAF and Christian Pulisic gets, frustrated. Because that is going to happen. And that's where I'm keeping my eye on in that regard.
So knowing that Honduras is going to turn this into one of those old-fashioned staring contests that we used to have as kids and figuring out who's going to blink first. And you mentioned these CONCACAF-y moments. Is there anyone that you would have liked to have seen be a part of this 4 games, 11 days that isn't a part of the roster currently? And obviously, you've got to pull folks out to put folks in this situation. So who would you have liked to have seen be a part of this that isn't, and who would you have pulled?
Jermaine Jones, for the sheer ability to also have a disregard for human life.
But he carries bagels and like coffees on the touchline now as an assistant coach.
That was great.
I know, it's actually quite cool to watch that transition. No, honestly, John, I think this roster that you have for the players who were healthy and available is the best roster you could have put together.
I got 2 questions on it, and they're both from the Twitch pitch. Daryl Dike and Miles Robinson are 2 names that have come up.
Okay, so I will address the Dike question. Let's remember what type of system that Greg Berhalter wants to run.
Accurate.
And then I'm saying this as a dig at Berhalter, but also an explanation of why Jordan Siebatcheu was picked over DK. There's a trend on TikTok right now where you have audio and you say something to the effect, and it says, "What was Plan A? Don't screw up. What was Plan B? Don't screw up Plan A." And what did you do? You screwed up Plan A. So anyway. So the point is, Greg Berhalter has Plan A. Mm-hmm. His Plan B is a slightly different formation, but it's still the same plan.
So it's essentially, and I think this is important for people to understand. For a national team, it's a little bit different because you don't get every day to work with them. I do think Berhalter's made that adjustment to the differences between club life and national team life.
Correct.
I'm good with that. That was a real concern I had for a while. I think he's got that.
Yeah.
But what he's doing is essentially a lot of what we've seen here in Atlanta with Gabriel Heinze, what Marcelo Bielsa, Pep Guardiola, these kinds of managers subscribe to. Their way of playing, their philosophy doesn't change. The tactics can change with a formation or personnel or exploiting something specific, but the philosophy, he's not going to go away from that, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so that's where Daryl Dike, and I'll say this too about Dike, as much as you think he's performed well at the club level, which he did in MLS, and he started out on fire in the championship, he hasn't looked superb in the U.S. shirt. And Ciabachi just gives you more of what Greg Berhalter wants from a forward. He's more technical on the ball. He plays for a team in Young Boys that is already used to playing more with a possessive style of game. So those things are why I think Ciabachi's included over DK. Miles Robinson, y'all, listen. I love Miles Robinson. I want him to get a move to Europe. I do not want him in Atlanta past 2022 for his own sake.
Okay with that.
But I'm sorry that Miles Robinson right now is not higher on the depth chart than Mark McKenzie, Matt Miazga, and John Brooks, all three guys who currently play in Europe. I don't necessarily say that Miles isn't there. I think that he absolutely can be. I think his passing has improved immensely. But I think you're asking for something because you just want to see Miles Robinson on the national team, and that's fine. I think that's great. You will have plenty of time to watch Miles Robinson play in a U.S. shirt in July during the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
And I think, I think you just have to do that.
Here it comes.
Go ahead, Jason.
I understand the European club thing. I've been there and done that, and I get it. But Brooks, I think, is fine. I have no problem with Brooks. I think he's the number one there. McKenzie's been in Europe for how long? And
he got there in January.
Yeah, and how much has he done? Miazga's been around a while and bounced around, and he's okay. I think for the opponents that you're going to play in this, and I think the opponents and the way that the U.S. wants to play, and I think this is where Miles and what he's doing here in Atlanta is going to actually really help the U.S. men's national team. Because if you're going to be a team that dominates possession and is a little open to being countered, it's nice to have a center back who can help you dominate possession, which there's no questions about Miles with the ball at his feet anymore. I think anybody still kind of carrying that narrative out there is incorrect. I'm sorry, I think Miles is better with the ball at his feet than Miazga, and probably better than McKenzie.
I don't think I think he's definitely better than Miazga right now. He's proven that.
Yeah, Miazga is the one that I have the issue with. McKenzie can be great, and he should be here. I'm okay with that. Miazga, to me, is not better than Miles Robinson at this point. And for the way that this team will play and who they're playing, I think Miles is the better fit. And I hope there's not whatever was alluded to by Jason Kreis with the U23s and things being said and this and that. I hope that's not affecting Miles Robinson's position here. I think on merit, he should be with this team right now and potentially be starting tonight.
Yeah, I think Miles is the one that maybe you could say, okay, yeah, he could help the team, but I don't really have an issue with the group of center backs that Berhalter called up, except for Tim Ream. But I also understand why Tim Ream was called up.
I get that. He allows you to go to three, and he's a vet. I get that. I'm okay with that one because I understand.
Right, and I think that's a little bit why Miazga was called in as well, where you do have a guy who's a veteran who has played in CONCACAF before, who has
composure
come
issues,
across
though.
these teams.
Composure issues.
So, I mean, I think at that point you're looking at, okay, well, I like Miles who does this better. But I think Miazga definitely is, and I'm trying to look at it from Berhalter's perspective.
Yeah,
I think Miazga is ahead of Miles, and on his depth chart. And
I agree. I don't think he should.
Miles has a chance to prove himself in the Gold Cup, and I definitely think Miles Robinson will be a part of World Cup qualifying. Let's just put it all out there because the amount of players you're going to need to play 3 games in a match window. Miles Robinson should be a part of your World Cup qualifying plans. But for this one, I see what you're saying, but I think for the most part, Berhalter got the center backs right.
Let's hope that Miazga's not counted on. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I think, well, and that's the other thing is I think Mark McKenzie is able to give you some of that pace to help back you up, but even Miles Robinson is going to struggle to keep up with Albert Elise. He's done pretty good in MLS. He was able to handle it, but most people are going to struggle with that.
All right, so prediction time. What if you want to give a score, give a score.
Yeah.
But what are you anticipating in this match tonight? What are you looking for here?
Trae Young will score 30 points again.
There you go. So who's going to bow at Mile High? That's the question.
Yeah, I hope we're not bowing at Mile High because it should be expected to win at home against Honduras.
Yeah.
But I do hope, I think what we'll see is very similar to what we saw against Honduras back in that Olympic qualifying match, where Honduras is going to allow the U.S. to attack and possess the ball. They're going to try to hit on the counter. All these things are going to remain true. And the difference, though, is the quality of player that the United States has now in this match versus the quality that Honduras has, at least the change in level is greater. And the United States across the board has better players at every position. And even Jackson Ewell, who will probably start, is going to be starting in a position that actually suits him a little bit better in the system than the attacking creative number 8 position where he was under Jason Kreis. So I think I think the score will be, some people, you have to be careful with Honduras because they're not going to give up a whole lot of goals, and they're probably going to get one. It's just how it's probably going to be. Be prepared for Honduras to get a goal on a counter. I'm going 2-1. I think that you have a very similar way that this match folds out, except that I think the U.S. gets a goal in the first half. I think Honduras is able to get one on a counter. And I think that a moment of individual brilliance from Sergiño Dest or Christian Pulisic gets the U.S. through. We're going to be talking probably a goal that we'll be talking about in the lore of U.S. men's national team history for a while. Do you remember that one? And I think, U.S. goes on into the final, and I do think they'll play Mexico. I know you're not asking for that prediction, but Mexico are clearly the class of CONCACAF. And we're going to have a final between Tata and Greg Berhalter and see if Berhalter has learned anything against Tata Martino. But, I think it's 2-1. I think U.S. wins. I think not comfortably, but confidently.
Yeah, not comfortably is where I'm at, too. I think it's going to be tight. I asked a question yesterday before the show started, Bart, as to who was the most important player for the U.S. tonight to get that uncomfortable win. Who do you think it is?
So probably in a bad way. I think it's going to be not a bad way, a negative way, but I think it'll be Zach Steffen because he's going to have to make some saves. He's just going to. I think, again, Albert Elise is probably going to beat our center backs once or twice. But I think from a build-up phase, Zach Steffen is going to be vital to making sure that we are building up out of the back the right way, but also looking for those chances when Honduras do break forward and they have some numbers advanced. Zach Steffen is going to have to recognize when we have chances to hit Honduras on a quick break. Because he may, there may be a cross in the box you can claim, and now Honduras has 5 guys up, and there's a Sergiño Dest or a Reggie Cannon that you can hit on the wing. And so I think his distribution tonight will be very key because he's going to have to be involved a lot in possession. He'll probably get the ball past him a few times. And he's just going to have to be very smart and very accurate with his distribution.
Now, you've had a lot of stuff up on the SDH platform here in the last couple of days, and I know you got a bunch more coming, so let everybody know what they can find from you.
Yeah, so obviously go to soccerdownhere.net to see what I'm writing about it. I'll have some stuff and thoughts coming out during the Nations League window. You can follow my podcast, Soccer for Us Pod, on Twitter, and we'll have an episode hopefully dropping today, and we'll have some recaps coming out throughout the Nations League. Follow Soccer for Us Pod on Twitter or Bartimus Prime 19 on Twitter.
Excellent. I'm sure we'll be talking again possibly tomorrow, depending on how tonight goes, and getting ready for hopefully a Nations League final against Mexico because, man, they need that test.
It's time for Berhalter to win, and it's time for us to take off the timidness that we have as U.S. men's national teams fans and go back to expecting to beat and win most of the games in CONCACAF.
Can we throw the training wheels in the trash? Is it time?
I mean, Honduras is going to take the training wheels off one way or another, so we might as well just get rid of them now.
That's true. They might take the training wheels off and beat you upside the head with it.
Exactly.
Awesome. Bart, thanks for the time this morning. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, John. Y'all have a great one.
You too. Bartimus Prime 19, Soccer for US Pod on Twitter. SoccerDownHere.net's got the latest from Bart about tonight. There will be more content coming. Really appreciate all the coverage of the U.S. men's national team from Bart. There's also, make sure you're following the American Outlaws chapter from Atlanta on Facebook for all of their events. They are doing live events, live watch-alongs again, and they will be at some different sites all over the metro area for upcoming games. So make sure you're following them on Facebook, on Twitter, everywhere, so you know what their events are and where they will be if you want to watch the game with a crowd tonight. We'll have a watch-along here on Twitch this evening for U.S. and Honduras. I'll be talking through it with you guys, so hopefully you'll join us for that as well. All right, John, it's that time. A little after that time, actually, but that's okay.
Yes.
Everybody knows what time it is. Tell us about our good friend, Steve Apolinsky.
Apolinsky & Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, one place you need to go. It's Apolinsky & Associates, LLC. 3 different ways that you can do it. You can pick up the phone, get a free consultation, 404-377-9191. You can shoot Steve an email, steve at aa-legal.com, or you can go on the World Wide Web, large device or small. Type in aa-legal.com in the address bar. Hit the enter key, the return key, the arrow key, whatever advances you to the homepage for Apolinsky & Associates, LLC, and you can look at all the different cases they can handle for you with the pull-down tabs, all the different awards that they have garnered over the last 30 years plus in getting over $40 million for their clients in Georgia and Alabama, 2 time zones represented, the Eastern and the Central. And if you still have questions after looking through all the pull-down tabs and all the information and staring at the awards, there's a pop-up window that pops up because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up 24/7, 365 and a quarter, and you can get your questions answered that way as well. Recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, one place you need to go. It's Apolinsky & Associates, LLC, and the website is aa-legal.com.
Not too shabby there, John. That's one of your best performances in a while.
Well, it's, since we're in the plus in the 10 o'clock half hour, I had to kind of go micro machines, so that was what we did.
Those are always the best ones. You should probably just do that in general, I think.
But then there's no fun in the grading at that point. Everybody's giving you 9.5s, and it's just like, great read.
You want
10
bad scores? Does that
make
sense?
Variety is the spice of life, sir.
Variety is the spice of life in terms of, I think I'll have a different sandwich from the menu today. Not, I want to be bad at what I do that I'm getting graded on. That makes 0 sense. You are baffling to me today. I do not understand it.
I thought I was baffling to you every day.
It's a scale, John. Like, it's like for some people,
the scale of bafflement.
Yes. For you, it's a wide range of baffling, and you're more baffling than normal today, is what I'm saying. Okay, scores. But they're probably good, so John doesn't really care. 9.5. -2 for the typing fingers and the attempt at air drawing an @ sign. What did you do with that? I wasn't paying attention.
It was an @
That just looked like a swirly thing.
It's an ampersand or whatever that @ is. Now, the ampersand is the and sign, but no, the @ is what I was doing.
Okay. -1, no thanks to Chris. -1, no pause. Decent read, I guess. 6.2458 from East Germany.
Of course.
A 10 from Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
A 10 from Fourcard. A 10 from Matt. Would have been a 10, but you kept with the air typing fingers -2. It's an 8. Christopher Abel is very negative about the United States tonight. He's very negative in general. He gives you a 3. He has taken over the East German leadership.
Yes, it's the TAC, the East German TAC.
Yes. Thomas says, since you asked for it, a 1 out of 10.
Thank you, Thomas.
Alex says, you want that hashtag content. Ragamuffin gives you a 0, more terrible than Mindy Kaling.
Wow.
Tommy gave you a 10 because he didn't hear it. He was distracted.
Thank you, Tommy.
Abby said, tomorrow will be a 10 because it will be less than 24 hours to special day with a birthday cake, I'm assuming.
There you go.
Mazzano gives you a 1 just to make you happy.
Sweet.
On a score 7 from 4 card.
So it was a crappy dunk.
7 out of, but you wanted it to be that, I guess. South Georgia gave you a 7. D. Graham gave you a 7.9. Can't score John too high. 6.54. Quick but too rushed. Would have been a 10. But because I'm still miffed about Miles' omission, this is burned. Only an 8.5. Very sorry, John. Can't help it.
Collateral damage on Miles Robinson gives me a minus 1.5.
But that's what you said you wanted. So why are you acting like you don't like that?
I'm not. Did I say that I didn't like it? I was just being factual about the discussion.
No, you said before you wanted variety in the scores, so you don't want all good scores. So you get bad scores.
I said I wanted variety in the scores. I didn't say I wanted all good scores.
What? I quit. I give up. We got other things to talk about anyway. So I need to talk about this one because I'm a little baffled by this, maybe more so than John today. Hernan Medford, the manager or a legendary player from Costa Rica, was at Herediano. He wore Burger King hat on the sidelines for a while. Hernan Medford took issue with people who say that the Clásico and CONCACAF is Mexico and the United States. And look, the final is set up to be Mexico and the United States in the Nations League. That's how everything worked out. That's what everybody's expecting. He said that Costa Rica historically has done more in CONCACAF than the United States. That's not true in really any scale you could possibly imagine. Costa Rica wasn't when the U.S. wasn't very good in CONCACAF, which was for a long time. Costa Rica really wasn't doing anything either. The first World Cup they qualified for was 1990. The U.S. also qualified for that one. Mexico was banned for using overage players, so they could not qualify for 1990. Gold Cups, the U.S. has more. They both have a quarterfinal run to the World Cup. Costa Rica in 2014, U.S. in 2002. But in CONCACAF play, there's really no comparison either. I'm a little baffled by this one from Medford, but this is a man who wore Burger King hats on the sideline in league matches in Costa Rica, so I guess I shouldn't be baffled.
That is true. Although I would like to know if it was just something that Medford wore, or if he actually had an affinity for said restaurant in addition.
Well, I hope he was getting paid and didn't just wear it because he likes to eat a Whopper every now and again.
But no, I mean, it's like, there are those times when you get an endorsement deal and it's actually tied to something that you dig,
I would hope that it was because they were paying him to do it rather than I just really like my trusty Burger King hat.
Well, no, I hope he was getting paid as well, but I hope that it was pay plus bonus of liking Burger King. That's what I was getting at. Okay. Pay the man.
No, don't pay the man because he says stupid things. Don't pay him. Don't pay him to wear your Burger King hat. Burger King probably became less popular because he was losing games. It's probably his fault that Burger King's shut down in Costa Rica. I don't know if that happened. I'm just assuming because he did a very poor job. No, don't pay the man. The
residual effect of Hernan Medford.
Don't pay the man. I don't even understand. I have to check on some news real quick because I'm a little confused by this one. Oh, wow. This is actually true. This is happening.
Uh-oh.
We don't have music for this, but if you listen to Soccer Over There, there is a certain player that we talk about quite a bit. This has become his de facto entrance theme. Nicholas Bentner has officially retired from football. You're probably wondering, wait a minute, was Nicholas Bentner still playing? Allegedly, he was playing on the old boys team of a Danish club, which was like their 4th division team or something or other. It didn't ever really make sense, but not much about Lord Bentner makes sense.
Yes.
He is still doing a reality show with his now ex, who was matched up on a dating website with Superman. Yeah, that happened. Other exes are coming out and saying bad things about our boy Bentner. He might lose his car because he has a whole bunch of tickets and driving too fast and all kinds of things in Copenhagen. The court case has been pushed back. He might be fined a whole lot of money and lose his car. And I can't remember which car it is, but it was a very pricey one.
Oh, it was like the $200,000
we don't need the details.
car.
We don't need the details. It's Bentner at this point. But, there's a lot going on in Nicholas Bentner's life, and he doesn't have time to play football anymore. So he is officially announcing his retirement. Arsenal has wished a happy retirement to Lord Bentner, and they've shown a video of one of his goals for Arsenal. I'll just say this one sums it up from @Sporf, which is a great one to follow if you've never followed it. @Sporf points out that Lord Nicholas Bentner has announced he's retiring. He has more Champions League minutes than Pele. He has more Premier League goals than Maradona. He has more World Cup games than Cantona, and he has more FA Cup goals than Cristiano Ronaldo. It is a sad day for football. Thank you for all you have given us, Nicholas Bentner. Enjoy your retirement and try to drive at the speed limit as best you can.
Oh, Sporf, the gift that keeps on giving.
You can continue to enjoy ice cream with new ladies, since you seem to have problems on that side of things too. Thank you for all that you've given the world, Nicholas Bentner. We appreciate it. It was a Porsche, yeah, and it's football loss is TV's gain. Kefsey, you're 100% true. It's Spider-Man, not Superman. Sorry, I can't keep up with Bentner anymore. I don't know. There'll be something else he'll do crazy.
All the superheroes run together for me anyway.
It's all the same at this point. It's his ex. She posted a very sad video that was very heavily scripted and shot and produced about the breakup. And, yeah, that's where things are in Nicholas Bentner's life. He does not have time for football anymore. Give him 6 months, he'll make a big comeback, and it'll be a big deal. All right. We've got some things to get into before Nico Moreno joins us at 10:30, where we will talk MLS. We'll also talk about the South American World Cup qualifiers. At 11, you will hear from Wilmer Cabrera of Rio Grande Valley of the USL Championship. He had a chance to talk to John yesterday about their hot start. We'll break down everything in USL Championship at the end of the show in our weekly USL Championship roundup. But what do we have on Twitter that we need to get to right now, John?
Well, let's see. Let's look on our Twitters and see what folks were talking about. Initially, one of the comments was about, yes, on the wrong Twitter account. I had to switch it over. Let's see. It was, where is it? Oh, Tafka, about our first topic this morning out of Omaha. One, he says it's awful predatory behavior.
Yes.
Two, I feel terrible for the victims. 3, who falls for this stuff? And 4, who has a spare $50,000 or more just lying around?
I have no answers to any of that. I think those are pretty much the questions that everybody has had. If you have answers, go ahead, John.
I agree with Tafka on 1 and 2. 3, I have no clue. And 4, definitely I have no idea who just has spare $50,000 just laying around. I really, really don't. That's those 2 of the questions I agree. The other 2, I'm just like, I have no answers. So I'm 50-50 with Tafka this morning.
Okay. What else do we have?
Nathan Pugh discussing things about the international window. And he posted it with the gif of the kid who has the harumph look on his face, just like the whatever. And Nathan says, players getting injured on international duty never gets old, and it's always so much fun. That's his Thursday thought. So I guess he's anticipating one, or referring to Trent Alexander-Arnold is what I think he's referring to.
That's some brilliant deduction skills there, John.
Took me a second.
Yeah, that's a good one. Trent Alexander-Arnold limped off in the final moments. Looked like he hurt his left leg. He was left out of the March Internationals, signaled to be substituted. Had to be helped as he hobbled back. Gareth Southgate said it's obviously not a good sign that he's had to walk off the pitch and he was in some discomfort. The next 48 hours will be key to determining the extent of the injury. It doesn't look great for him for the Euros. And it's another Liverpool defender, let alone Liverpool player, who has an injury. that he should be fine by the time you get back to the Premier League getting started in mid-August. But, yeah, it's just really bad luck.
Yeah. And then the last one on Twitter that catches us up comes from Swixter with our discussion with Bart this morning. Mm-hmm. Swixter says, I might catch flack for it, but I don't think it'll be the U.S. playing Mexico in the final.
It should be, and that's, I think, the bigger element here because, I mean, obviously we can't control what happens in the match, and if the U.S. doesn't beat Honduras, it is a failure, huge failure. I mean, there's just no way around it. There's no excuse. If Mexico doesn't beat Costa Rica, it's a huge failure. The U.S. has, in my opinion, reestablished itself as the number 2 in CONCACAF, which is good. That was job 1 for Greg Berhalter, and now he needs to push to be at the same level as Mexico, which they're not right now. These are games that they should be expected to win. I understand in terms of a fan base having PTSD about things that have happened with the national team. I understand the concerns in a fan base, but in terms of expectation, when you look at these rosters, in terms of quality, the U.S. should win. Honduras isn't going to make it easy for that to happen, and they're very comfortable in being a difficult out. But, yeah, the U.S. should win. There shouldn't even be much freaking out about it. They should. If they don't, and I think this is the important element to this kind of thing from Swixter, is I get the fear. I get that. I mean, I saw it last night with, like, 8 minutes to go or 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and the Hawks are leading by double digits, and people are freaking out. Oh, they're going to do the Atlanta thing again. I saw people tweeting that. It's like, at some point, you got to let that go. You know, like, yes, teams will blow leads. It happens. Teams will lose games that they should. They shouldn't. But it's when it just becomes the overriding thing, it's like, stop it. Now, what I take out of this with the U.S. is they have to win the fan base back. The fan base has to be willing to be won back, which is an element here. But the expectation has to be that the U.S. wins. I actually don't like the idea that it's, I don't know if the U.S. is going to win here, because it lowers expectations, and I don't think that helps the situation. The situation should be Greg Berhalter and his team is expected to go in and win this game, even if they have to sweat for it, even if they have to suffer for it. It's a semifinal. I don't care about style points right now. I want them to develop their style and play the way that they're trying to play, because that helps, but I want them to win. We'll judge the style later. They got to win first. I hope that this kind of mentality, and look, Swixter's not the only one. I'm not picking on Swixter here. He knows that. It's the idea that, okay, I hope that this doesn't lower expectations for the U.S., because that should not be happening. There can be fear about them getting the job done, yes, but the expectation should always be, outside of Mexico, the U.S. should win these games. Mm-hmm. Going on the road is difficult. This is not on the road. This is in Denver. They should win this. You go to Honduras in a World Cup qualifier, okay. You get a result, you're happy. You don't want to settle for a result, but if you get a result, if you get a draw, you're happy. You go to Mexico, anything's gravy in a World Cup qualifier. You host Mexico, the U.S. should still expect to win that game. The expectations have to be higher, and people's successes and failures have to be judged on those realistic expectations, not lowered ones from fear. I think that's a very important element here. And I hope that this is not lowering expectations because of what we've seen in the past.
And looking at juice boxes, I wanted to see if anything had changed. The USA is still a minus 300.
Yeah,
that hasn't changed much from yesterday. Honduras is closing in on being a plus 1,000 in the composite. They're at about plus 950 right now.
Yeah, that's about where it should be. They should be expected to win this comfortably, and they should. Alex, not when the U.S. handles their ticket allocations properly, they are not away at home. That has not been the case at the historic Crew Stadium because it's a smaller venue. They've sold it to people in the U.S. soccer family primarily. It hasn't been a sea of green there. For a friendly or for a CONCACAF event, completely different story, because CONCACAF wants that money. Friendlies, both sides want that money. But in a World Cup qualifier, and that's why it's very important for the U.S. to book that game in the right place. You have to book it in a place that is a little bit smaller, that the tickets can get sold to season ticket holders of that club, that city's club. U.S. Soccer, their mailing list, their database, and that is the bulk of the tickets that are sold. There's always going to be some that end up in Mexican fans' hands. That's a given. But in those qualifiers, it's been different. Now, again, there's a huge difference because it's the way the games are booked. In a qualifier, U.S. Soccer books it, and they're booking it to have the most U.S. fans in the building. In a CONCACAF game, they're booking it to make the most money. They don't care. In a friendly, the U.S. and Mexican federations don't really care because it's about money. In a World Cup qualifier, it's the one time when they play Mexico, and it's going to happen one more time, it looks like, with the new format happening. Maybe ever. In a Nations League game, it would be the same. In a home game in a group stage, that probably won't happen with U.S. and Mexico either. But in an official game, yes, the U.S. will control that booking, and they will limit the number of Mexican fans that can get in the building, and they should. No problem with that. Because you can go back through U.S. soccer history, and especially as they were very slowly emerging, they marketed the critical World Cup qualifier in 1985 against Costa Rica. And maybe this is what Hernan Medford's talking about, going back to Costa Rica's done more in CONCACAF than the United States, going back to the mid-'80s. The U.S. booked that game and marketed it specifically to Costa Rican expats in California. It was a World Cup qualifier, and it was a critical one, and they ended up losing it, and the fans were overjoyed that Costa Rica won, and the coaching staff and the players are like, what are y'all doing? Could you not do that again, please?
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. Emilio Corsi says, I confess my wife and I kept looking at the clock at MLS Cup 2018 when we were up 2-0. Last week's Nashville match, kind of similar, but we didn't think the worst, so we've progressed. I'll take that draw. Progression's good. There were a lot of people who felt that about MLS Cup, and I think Atlanta sports fans who had went through what happened in the Super Bowl, that was still really recent nonsense. In that game, I've said it, I said it on the broadcast, I lost myself in it. Second goal, when when Atlanta went up 2-0, I wasn't worried at all. I was worried through the first half, and Portland had that one chance that Brad Kazan made a big save on from Ebobisse.
Yeah.
Second goal, I wasn't worried, and Portland really didn't show much else after that. So I was not. I didn't think there was a whole lot of sweating in that one, which was good. I get it how there was for people and for things that had nothing to do with Atlanta United. I understand that. But I think it is important to, I think, understand the expectations and do have those conversations. And look, we've had them about Atlanta United for over a year now, about expectations and what's acceptable and what's not and what's realistic and how things change with situations, with injuries, like what happened with Joseph, et cetera, et cetera. But for the U.S., the expectations should be, no question, a win tonight. No question. And if it's not, that is not a place I want to be in. Because, it will be tied to World Cup qualification. And I do still have a fear going into that about those games on the road, because they're going to have to find some points on the road to not have to sweat qualification. We don't know exactly who's going to be there yet, but there's not a lot of places on the road that I feel secure in getting 3. That's not a good place to be. We will see what that looks like. And tonight's result, I think, will be very important in establishing a comfort level with some of this. World Cup qualification results around CONCACAF yesterday. Our friends in Montserrat won 4-0 over the U.S. Virgin Islands. they do still have an outside chance of getting into the final round. It's not the hexagonal anymore. It is the octagonal.
Octagonal.
Yes, the Ocho. Aruba defeated the Cayman Islands 3-1. Cuba still has a shot to get into that final round. They beat the British Virgin Islands 5-0. Dominica 3-0 over Anguilla. And Puerto Rico 7-0 over the Bahamas. Some MLS and USL Championship players were involved in that. Dave Sarachan has got Puerto Rico humming right now. And they had a big win. I think they still have an outside chance of getting into that final round, but it's going to be tough. They're going to need a lot of help. Other news on the board, the Antonio Conte Tottenham talk is heating up a bit. There's also the heating up of Fabio Paratici heading to Tottenham as a sporting director. One might happen, and two might happen, and zero might happen in this situation. It could be Conte by himself. It sounds like, according to the reports, Paratici is the closest to doing a contract with Tottenham, which is a little surprising, and it maybe is a signal that Tottenham is going to do business differently. Conte, it still sounds like there is a €3 million gap between what the club is offering and what he wants. There is the idea, and this is interesting, that if Conte comes in, Tottenham feels like he will be able to convince Harry Kane to stay. He's a huge Harry Kane fan. He said this back in 2017-18 when he was at Chelsea. He said, if I have to bring a striker, I'll go with all my strength to Harry Kane. He's perfect. I consider him one of the best strikers in the world. So that would be very interesting if Tottenham's able to get Paratici and Conte and keep Harry Kane. And it looks like they're also making progress on a new contract with Son. So they might keep that group. And then is there going to be investment beyond that? That's the part that I'm not sure. Paratici and Conte aren't taking the job if there's not.
Right.
They're not going to take it. So if Tottenham is going down this road, it feels like it could be a new dawn for the club and a new era and things being done differently. It could be. If they both go there, I think it is. And we'll have to see how it plays out. Cristiano Ronaldo, according to AS, PSG are on the move for Cristiano Ronaldo. Initiated contacts to bring him in. Allegri doesn't want him at Juventus, and the club is willing to negotiate. That is according to AS out of Spain. Simone Inzaghi is officially the new manager at Inter, which was not a surprise. That was expected, leaving Lazio, going to Inter. Ronald Koeman will be staying at Barcelona. Joan Laporta wants a little more consistency in the way that they play, wants them to attack more, wants them to play out of a 4-3-3, the classic Barca way. We'll see if they do that. Jordi Cruyff is back at Barcelona now. He's going to be part of the sporting department. It's a little undefined if it's not exactly a technical director, but kind of, sort of. He's back at the club. That was part of Laporta's campaign that he would be bringing Jordi Cruyff back in, and he is. He's left his club that he was with in China to rejoin Barcelona. He played there. Obviously, his dad is an incredible figure at Barcelona. So that is a good sign of getting back to what Barcelona is. We'll see if Ronald Koeman gets them back to playing the way that Joan Laporta wants them to play. Everton is talking and sorting things out and figuring out what they could do. Nuno Espirito Santo's name has come up. They're talking about Nuno going to Everton. They are having meetings. Nuno's been linked to Crystal Palace as well. Not sure where that one stands. A couple other things out of England real quick. The Community Shield is booked for Saturday, August 7th, Manchester City and Leicester City. Chelsea looking to sell potentially up to 11 players to bring in as much as $180 million. Olivier Giroud expected to leave on a free transfer. There are links with him to New York City FC right now.
Yep.
Others could go out on loan. Christian Pulisic's name has come up on a list that he could potentially be sold. The Daily Mail broke all of this down. This is very early days. I'll believe all of that when I see it. they're not going to sell everybody on the list and bring in the full 180 million. Not happening.
No. West Ham apparently also is a part of the interest for Olivier Giroud, and Arsenal have also confirmed that Real Madrid's Dani Ceballos and Martin Odegaard have completed their loan spells at the club.
Okay. Nico Moreno will be joining us here shortly with his coffee in hand, joining us from the Pacific Northwest. Make sure you're following Pulso Sports in English and Spanish for all of Nico's great work, also Sounder at heart. Nico, how are you this morning?
Hey, what's going on? My favorite guys for Thursday morning. How's it going?
We are doing well. It's a weird time because it's like MLS is taking a break, but it's very, very busy. And we've got CONCACAF tonight. CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers. We do have some MLS talk, though, that I want to get started with you. Soccer America did their power rankings. I know MLS does theirs. Everybody does their power rankings. Seattle's at the top for most. Who is the second best team in the league, according to what you've seen?
That's a good question. And honestly, it's a difficult one because I would also like to go on potential and not necessarily just on what we see in the standings or how many points they've been able to manage. So that's a tough one. But I mean, just going by most people's perception on soccer and just averaging out what they've been able to do and kind of the roster and how well coached they are. I'd have to go with New England. I think they are a team to be reckoned with because of their ability to just simply understand what their identity, what they need to play on the field. It just, you could see it. They have a great creator like Carlos Hill. They got Gustavo Bo, Busca. I mean, this team really understands how to attack, and yet on the defensive end, they're very compact. Obviously, they play that 4-2-3-1 that some of us like me really like because it overpopulates the midfield, and you get those two center defensive midfields that can be very versatile on the defensive end because they can kind of get in between the four-man back line. They can give those left backs or those full backs a lot of liberty. So, yeah, I think that because of what they've been able to do and how well they're coached and the talent that they have, I'd probably go with New England.
All right, so then let me go to the flip side of the discussion. Who have been some of the most disappointing sides that you've seen so far this year?
Oh, man, that's easy, right? That is extremely easy for me, especially because I had huge, enormous belief in Luchi Gonzalez and what FC Dallas was going to be able to do, and it just hasn't resulted in anything. I mean, I really do believe that they have a good roster, and I believe that they have a great coach, and yet they just continue to be disappointing. I mean, it's hard to see what's wrong, and I don't want to put it on Luchi particularly, because when you look at the roster, and me as a South American, and I see a lot of the talent that they have, it's hard to see them dead last in the West. I mean, they got Rick Cuarta, he's a very well-known midfielder from Colombia. Jara, coming from Liga MX, the Argentine that was supposed to come in and just kind of put it all together for Dallas. I mean, they waited on him. Everybody was anxious to get him here. People thought that he was going to be like a Gustavo Bo type, and he just has not pondered into anything. He hasn't executed as you thought he would. O'Brien for me was a good signing, and he's taking in some time to kind of put himself together in the league. So it's hard for me to see them just struggle the way they are. And they just haven't. They just have not been able to really put it together. Colorado just completely ran over Dallas, and I don't see any answers. I don't see. I see a lot of head scratching and not a lot of ability to just come up with how are we going to fix this. You're holding possession, but is possession without purpose. You are creating chances, but you're not putting them away. And then on the defensive end, you're making honestly silly mistakes, and it just hasn't played out for the team.
Yeah, Dallas is a conundrum. Like I expected progression from them. Some of the other teams towards the bottom, I expected a little more from Chicago, but not that much. Cincinnati, kind of the same thing. Toronto's had a bunch of injuries, but Toronto's also got all this bubbling up of friction.
Oh, yeah.
You got Josie, you got Quentin Westberg now. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. I don't think it's a surprise to the club that Chris Armas is managing the team in the way that he is. I would assume that was part of the conversation about hiring him, that they would be more vertical, that they would be more of a high-pressing team. That's what he had shown. Is it just, in your opinion, a process to get to where they want to get to, which is younger and maybe more of an athletic team versus a skilled team? Or do you think this is going to end badly all the way around the board for Ali Curtis and Chris Armas?
I think it's going to end bad. I think right now there's issues in the locker room, like you just said. And Josie Altidore, at the end of the day, he is a leader. He is a guy that guys look up to. Mm-hmm. And that can create not just dysfunction with one player, but with a group of players. So that's for one. For two, I feel like I never liked Chris Armas's way of approaching soccer and kind of the way he built his teams and his approach to the game. So I don't necessarily think he's the best build, but I think the biggest issue here is that you just need to restructure and just completely change this team from the core. Starting with Bradley, Altidore. I mean, all these guys that you know that they've been in the team for a while, but it's time for a change. I would even put Delgado in there. I feel like he has not been as effective in the team as perhaps he used to be. I mean, there's just so many issues with this squad. When we had a discussion with a friend of mine, John Rojas, who obviously is also an MLS insider, he was talking about how Chris Armas had gotten this Ferrari and he didn't quite know how to use it. But in reality, this is a Ferrari, I mean, it's a Ferrari that's leaking oil, that needs new brakes, that needs a new transmission. I mean, it honestly doesn't feel like it's a Ferrari, right?
Was he brought in to strip the Ferrari and sell the parts? Because that's what it kind of feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And maybe that's what they had in mind, of just kind of just changing the entire roster, but just right now it's just not looking good for Toronto in any way. And even if they were to bring in a couple more pieces, you'd have to give them time to kind of just fit together. So I just don't see a short-term solution for this Toronto team. As bad as Dallas has been, and them being dead last, even I put them with a little bit more potential, because I feel like it's just gonna, once they put it together, I feel like the team will be cohesive. I see none of that here in Toronto. None of it.
And, Nico, I don't know if, I can't remember if we got to talk about it last week or not, but what about a situation like we're seeing in Miami? And, with all of the designated players, and the MLS comes out with their punishment, and there's this expectation that Miami this year, with all the changes and a change on the touchline, would be more competitive, and they're just north of Toronto in the standings, and you don't know which Miami you're going to get on any given day.
Miami did it wrong from the beginning, from the start, from the way they built and structured their roster, to the decisions made in the front office, to the decisions made on how they were gonna, just kind of change MLS, and they put all this expectation on them. So it's all just, right now, it's just a result of all those bad decisions that happened throughout when they first came on into the scene, right? So they've missed out on DPs, because Pizarro was a huge miss, not necessarily because of the player he is, perhaps, but just the way they were going to use him. or what they thought he could bring. So it was just a misread from the front office on Pizarro as a player. Obviously, the decision that they made to have 5 DPs at some point, because that's what we
because
are
5
hearing
does
from
not
the
equal
league now.
3, Nico.
That's right. And, you scratch your head when you saw some of these names, and now we know why. Now we understand why there was so little information about the contracts of some of these players. And
go back to the Matuidi thing. Like when Blaise Matuidi's name came up attached to Miami, everybody's like, well, okay, they're going to have to sell Pellegrini or Carranza or loan him out because he's going to come in as a designated player. There's no way around it. Then, like, at the last minute, the reporting changed where it's, oh, no, he's going to be a TAM guy. It's all good. And it's like, oh, well, that's amazing. How'd they pull that off? Well, they didn't, we find out later. And they also had Andres Reyes, who should have been a designated player from the beginning of the season. And then there's 3 other guys that they misreported their numbers. Do you feel like they were punished enough? Should they have gotten more punishment? I thought a points deduction was in line.
Oh, you know what? I didn't really think about the point deduction.
Because, I mean, they basically kept Chicago and Atlanta and anybody else from getting into the playoffs.
We'll never know who they kept out. Because, I mean, if you go to Reyes should have been a designated player, you're going back to the beginning. I mean, if you just looked at Matuidi joining midseason, Atlanta played Miami like 95 times last year, it felt like.
They did. That is true.
Chicago was the first team out if Miami, wasn't able to make the playoffs. So, I mean, they stole a playoff spot in a lot of ways.
Look, they've been such an awful team that I didn't quite think about point reduction. It's been just so bad.
they've
overall
deduced their points on their own because of being bad.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, if there was this high-flying team that was like top of the table, I'd be like, you know what, you're absolutely right. I honestly didn't think about it because they've been so awful. But you're right. I mean, how did they affect every other team's chances? And even on the whole Andres Reyes thing, I don't know how they brought him in as a DP. I mean, I just think that even that decision alone was bad. I mean, they're honestly getting suckered to get a whole bunch of guys for X amount of money. But at the end of the day, they just haven't been doing things well. You see it now. I think Chris Henderson is going to do a lot of well, as I've said over and over again, for this team, because he comes from an organization that's done it right from the very beginning. He's a well-connected guy, smart guy, so that's going to help him out. But it's going to take some time. And right now on the field, this is just a bad team. I mean, for you to give up 3 goals against a really not impressive DC side, and you're so predictable defensively, and you're giving so much space of guys in the box. I mean, the first goal for DC, this guy has all the room in the world. He could have checked his phone and then shot the ball, and he would have been able to still do it. I mean, it was really bad, and you see it in the stands. You see the disappointment in the fans. I mean, in general, this team is just not doing well, and once again, it's going to be a while for them to kind of put it together. I wasn't a huge fan of the coaching signing either. So, whenever you're getting your co-owner or owner's homie or boy to come and coach your team, it's not a good thing, man. Like, he could have all the accolades in the world, but at the end of the day, he's just your boy that you called up and you said, hey, man, why don't you come and coach this team? I don't like it.
And they don't have a major jersey sponsor yet.
Which is weird. That should tell you enough about this Miami team. There hasn't been that stadium that they wanted. They haven't been able to bring in Messi or Suarez or whoever Beckham swore that he was going to bring in. It's just all put together. Now they don't have a sponsor for their jersey. I mean, my goodness. I mean, Beckham has not been able to do anything for this team.
Yeah, it's so weird. And the league will benefit from a strong Miami club. The league as a whole will benefit from it. And look, maybe in 2023 when Lionel Messi shows up as the Barcelona ambassador in the United States on his 10-year deal that he's going to sign, then maybe things look different. Who knows?
I'm still trying to figure that one out myself, man. I really am. I can't even put it together on how all that played out. I mean, when I kind of saw the reports on it, and then I saw Felipe Cardenas kind of put it in. I was looking for the sarcasm in the tweet, but there was none. So it's just I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to look at this team and have any positive thoughts about it. Honestly, it's been really bad. And once again, not just in the way that this thing's been put together, but just the play on the field. Just there's such a disregard for effort and such a disregard for a playing style. I mean, you just don't see anything out of this Miami team. It's really bad.
It's a lot of work for Chris Henderson and Phil Neville and whoever of the ownership is making these decisions to fix what was bad coming in for those guys, and then also like try to do something along the way to where you're not getting booed off the field. But that's the reality for Miami right now. It's a mess. Let's get into a couple other things outside of MLS with you this morning. CONCACAF Nations League today. Mexico and the U.S. are the favorites. They should both go through, but I think both have tests. Costa Rica has upset Mexico in the past, not often, but they have. Mexico, I think, is the more clear favorite. For the U.S., I know Greg Berhalter's trying to downplay this and saying it's not connected to the upcoming World Cup qualification process and all of that, but it's not must-win for the United States, and that Berhalter's going to lose his job if they don't. But I think it's critical for the U.S. men's national team to beat Honduras. I don't think they have to do it with style, but they just have to win. If they don't, it's a massive failure, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the expectation, right? And this being the golden era of U.S. soccer, you have 5-6 guys playing huge European tournaments. You have your first Champions League winner in Pulisic. So I think there is a level of pressure. I think that there is a must-win mentality from Berhalter, because he has to be the one that puts it all together. That's why you were brought in, because you were kind of this guy that could create this really good style. You were good, with young players, and that's what you have now, right? So Honduras is a good team in terms of that they got veteran players. They've done this, done that. They're going to have experience on this USA team. But on the talent side, you'd have to just completely give it to the United States, right? You saw in the last friendly against Switzerland a little bit of that, but then you did see some of that miscommunication from a lot of players because they don't have that relationship and they haven't really played together. So you got a lot of talent. So it's going to take a lot for Greg Berhalter to just put it together. But I do believe that the U.S. has to win today, and they have to at least get to the finals in this tournament because of the talent and the expectation of this team in general.
When you look at the U.S., I mean, I was trying to figure out the best way to phrase it. It's like, who are you most looking forward to seeing in this match tonight on a national stage? Because there are a lot of young players. There's a lot of young talent. One of the first times that they will have all been together in a group for a while. Who are you most looking forward to seeing tonight?
The most exciting player, and it's interesting because he's a fullback, is Sergio Dest. I just feel like he has this flair about his game and that ability to get forward, and I think that he does provide a lot of width for the team. So I want to see him do well. And then the number 9 position is such a important one for this team, the center forward on this 4-3-3. I'm a big Josh Sargent guy. I've been that guy, but he just hasn't really been able to put it together. So I'm interested in seeing how Berhalter will kind of figure that out. But I would like to see, at least in a real competition against the Honduras team, what Josh Sargent could do up front.
Yeah, I think Sargent has to kind of take this job and make it his. And this is an opportunity for him. It's a huge opportunity for him. And we'll see if he can do that in this tournament, because I think he's got the keys to the car. And we'll see how he drives it. I want to get into South America with you as well. Like it's 4 games in the World Cup qualification process, and in my opinion is the best one in the world, and I know it's probably going to change here quickly with the expanded World Cup, but 4 teams out of 10 get in. The 5th one goes into the Continental Playoff. It is a double round robin. You play everybody twice, home and away. 4 games out of 18 to play. Brazil, Argentina at the top, no huge surprise. Ecuador in 3rd, maybe a little bit of a surprise. They've won 3 in a row. Paraguay hasn't lost yet, but they've got a little bit of a goal differential advantage on Uruguay. They play today. Chile, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, and Bolivia are right now on the outside looking in. We've got games today and a couple of really interesting ones. Who are you looking at as the team that has maybe been the biggest disappointment in South America, who still has time to turn it around?
The biggest disappointment might be Colombia, man. I mean, Colombia has a lot of talent, and they, I think, have failed to bring in somebody that really puts it together. I feel like Reynaldo Rueda is a good coach and might be able to kind of bring back a lot of these pieces. But now you see this whole thing with James Rodriguez and, them not calling him up to play. And he's kind of throwing statements on his own and is getting Everton's medical trainer to put statements out there that he is good to go and that, he's ready for play. So there's so much concern with Colombia. And when you look at their talent and what they have in Zapata and Muriel and all these players that are supposed to, kind of put it in for the team, I feel like they're the team that hopefully can turn it around, because it has not been great for Colombia. And if they continue to lose points, they might not make the World Cup. I mean, right now, they are in 7th place. And this is something that I didn't think was possible after the huge steps they've taken over the last, 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. So Colombia is definitely a team that, for me, is a huge disappointment because of what they had done, because of the talent that they have, and it's going to take a lot for them to really put it together. But I think they still have time. They got a Peru team that they typically do well against, and I think this game today, Peru-Colombia, that's your latest game of the day. I think it's one of the ones that people are going to be watching. Of course, you got Argentina-Chile, which they're big clubs. They're the big teams, the big nations of soccer. But I think Peru-Colombia is going to be telling on 2 different processes, a Ricardo Gareca process that, it seems to have all the right tools, but hasn't really pulled any results. And then a Colombia team who has a brand new coach, has all the talents, but there's a lot of question marks behind it. So that's the one I'm going to be looking forward to.
Has Gareca done all he can do with Peru?
I think so. I really do. I mean, and they love him. I mean, the media loves him. The players love him. Other coaches love him. I mean, everybody loves Gareca, and I really do think he's done the right things. Peru, as much as they are a good soccer nation because they do provide good players, they don't have the talent pool that perhaps Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, and even Colombia have. So sometimes it's hard to judge them on it. But I do think Gareca has done everything he could with them. And as much as they have not done well lately, because they've lost just about the last 3 games that they've played in CONMEBOL play, they've played some tough opponents, and they've had some controversial games, like the one against Brazil in the last qualifier week. So, yeah, I do think that he's done everything he can.
Yeah, since we're talking CONMEBOL and discussing what they've been going on, what did you think about Copa America being shifted to Brazil after Colombia and Argentina ended up losing the tournament because of various factors, one political and one based on COVID? What did you think about the shift to Brazil?
The shift was a bit of a surprise, and yet not so much. I mean, I've been struggling with this because as soon as I knew Colombia was not going to be able to have the tournament. I mean, there was no way that the civilians, anybody who was anybody in Colombia was going to allow that to happen. I immediately started thinking about where it could go. So I was making calls, some of my contacts in South America and CONMEBOL. And as much as the United States made all the sense in the planet because of COVID protocols, because of infrastructure, stadiums, transport, anything that you'd want for a tournament, I started to call CONMEBOL, and every contact that I talked to in CONMEBOL just simply did not see the United States as a factor. And there was a certain level of annoyance that everybody expected the tournament to go to the United States when the U.S. is not even part of their tournament. So I think there was a sense of pride of, hey, you know, we're South America. This is our cup. It's our nation, so we're going to just force it somewhere. So they try to force it in Argentina. Argentina says, not here. And now you try to force it in Brazil. The country is divided because there's a lot of people that don't believe it's the right time to make a tournament because of economical issues, social issues, COVID issues. And yet CONMEBOL is willing to just force it in because of that South American pride of just having the tournament there. So I don't necessarily like it. But it is what it is. I think that at the end of the day, CONMEBOL is going to just look out for their own benefits, and they're going to play this tournament. And obviously, players want to play, nations want to play, with the exception of Chile, who there's a lot of reports were saying they don't want to be part of this tournament anymore. But in reality, I wish it was different. I wish that I wish they would look more for the social aspect and the humanity aspect of things rather than just kind of, hey, we're going to just do our tournament, we're going to get our money, and that's it, you know? So I'm not a huge fan of it going to Brazil. I thought that it would have been better to do it in the U.S., but I hope everything goes well. I hope players can stay safe. I hope everybody does good COVID protocols because there's issues in Brazil as well. So, yeah, that's basically my take on it.
Yeah, it's a mess, and I really probably will never get answers to this directly, but you know, everything that went down with the Copa America Centenario, and like that's what sparked a lot of the whole FBI investigation about corruption in the game, and a lot of key figures in CONMEBOL were indicted and or arrested. That probably has to have something to do with the idea, along with I think everything you said about, you know, CONMEBOL and the pride kicking in. They don't want to do business with the U.S. Soccer Federation, and it's something that both need to find a way to work together down the road, because we can project things out, and we've talked about it when it comes to MLS clubs and Copa Libertadores and CONCACAF and CONMEBOL working together more and all these things. They're going to have to find a way to work together at some point, and it would have made more sense to have the tournament here from a financial perspective. They would have made money. Because you sold tickets. And the fact that they can't get on the same page, it hurts the game for both. And it hurts the game in general. And I hope it's something that over time that can get resolved. And maybe it's just changes of leadership. I don't know. But it has to factor into it as to why CONMEBOL didn't consider coming to the United States. Because it sounds like that was never really a consideration.
Yeah, and there's been some reports about how for Copa America Centenario was like there was a whole bunch of issues economically between CONCACAF and CONMEBOL and who was in charge and how things are played out. But I feel like those things could be put aside and maybe just focus with the U.S. Soccer Federation. And but there wasn't any need because they didn't want to.
Right.
It was like I said, it's a pride thing. Is that we're CONMEBOL, we are the essence of soccer, and we're just going to do it here. But yeah, honestly, looking forward to the tournament. Not looking forward for what it can do for Brazil. I really do think that there could be protesters. There could be, you know, maybe buses be hit by huge crowds. I mean, I don't know. I just hope they are able to keep players safe in every sense.
Yeah, in all senses, because it's not going to be easy to get this thing done. It's not even going to be all over Brazil. It's only going to be limited to a few different states that are willing to do it. So it's going to be one to keep an eye on. I think even the qualifiers today and early next week are going to be something to keep an eye on. What else are you keeping?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm excited. I mean,
I am too.
CONMEBOL for me is the best soccer in the planet. For me, CONMEBOL play, I would rather watch it than Champions League and Europa League. There is literally no tournament in the planet that I'd rather see than the CONMEBOL qualifiers in Copa America because of the way these teams play and most of the soccer players that come to the European leagues come from South America. So I'm super hyped about it. So I do hope that things go well and there's no issues or any suspensions of games, or they're going to have to remove and relocate anything. But it is an interesting day. I want to make sure that everybody knows that I'm excited for CONMEBOL play. As much as Colombia's been a disappointing, and they're coming from a 6-1 loss to Ecuador that I still have in the back of my mind. I'm excited for it. I hope that today against Peru, things turn around for Colombia, and they're able to kind of put it together because, man, it's been bad.
What else are you keeping an eye on during the break from MLS?
I do want to see, a Gold Cup. I want to see the Cup Nations, and how that's going to play out. I'm interested in seeing how this whole Mexico and the U.S. rivalry goes. I enjoy it. You get fans from both sides. Talk about which national team is better, and I think it's good for competition for the United States and Mexico to have like the little bit of a rivalry. So I'll be looking forward to that. Obviously, a lot of Sounders are going to be playing a lot of these tournaments. Javier Arraga with Ecuador and Raul Diaz with Peru. So I'm going to be looking forward to seeing those players and how well MLS players in general do in these tournaments. Venezuela has quite a few of those. Obviously Peru. So yeah, I'm just excited to see some of these MLS players play all these international tournaments.
Awesome. Nico, let everybody know where they can follow you and keep up with everything you got going on.
Absolutely. You could always follow me at El Rolo NW. That's ELROLO. And no, El Rolo is not the candy. Just Rolo is what they call people from Bogota. I've had that question before. Rolo the candy. It just happens to be a coincidence. But
do you like the Bogota, candy, though?
They call them Rolos.
Do you like the candy?
It's not my favorite.
It's been a while since I've had a Rolo.
It's not my favorite. So it's very ironic. But yeah, it's not my favorite candy.
I was wondering.
And always you can follow my stories at Sounder at Heart, Pulse of Sports. We just had that one-on-one with Raul Diaz. The article is on Sounder at Heart. You could also listen to the entire 45 minutes, I believe, with Raul, fully in Spanish, in our YouTube channel at Pulse of Sports. So yeah, that's basically most of it.
Awesome. Nico, we'll talk to you next week. We'll have hopefully some Nations League good things to talk about from the U.S. We'll see where these MLS guys go over the break and how they perform. I know in Atlanta we're waiting to see if Joseph Martinez plays for Venezuela. They've got a very tricky trip to La Paz today to face Bolivia, which is always one of the hardest places to play in the world. We'll have plenty to dig into next week. Thanks for taking the time for us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, my friends. Always thank you for having me, and a huge thank you and always gratitude to your audience down there. They've reached out. They've been wonderful. I am definitely planning a trip to Atlanta to just take in all this Southern hospitality because they have really made me feel at home through your show. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Nico. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Nico Moreno, El Rolo NW. I kind of like the candy, to be honest. But
I do too.
It's been a while since I've had the candy. So
I know. See, and the thing is that you can't do it during. You have to be careful where you place it, especially in the summer months. And if you put Rolos in the freezer, that is something that I've discovered over time that is very, very good.
Rolos in the freezer?
Yeah, you put Rolos in the freezer. That way you make sure that they keep their constitution. And then when they come out of the freezer, it's like, you put Reese's in the freezer, you put Rolos in the freezer, those kinds of things. On a hot summer day, nothing like, getting a hyper cold candy and having that as a part of your day.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. We'll get Nico down to Atlanta here very soon, and we'll get him some of that Southern hospitality. But it's always great to catch up with Nico. Yeah, J-Dub asked it. I was going to leave it alone. But
what?
It's caramel. Don't they become hard bricks in the freezer?
Well, but you have the chocolate outer shell.
Okay. Martha agrees with you. Says they're delicious frozen. I've never tried that. I can't speak on it either way. I was wondering a little bit about the brickness of them potentially, but I trust Martha's food takes more than I trust yours, John.
As you should.
Yes, definitely that. All right. It's always funny when you have to add permitted terms from things that Martha says. What's up, EFC bros? Thanks for joining us. We're about to jump into our USL championship block. John had a chance to talk to Wilmer Cabrera of Rio Grande Valley yesterday. They've been one of the hotter teams in the USL championship so far. We've got some other news. I don't know if it'll top our news out of Omaha in the USL, but
nope.
We will do our best. Anything else we need to hit on before we jump into USL?
I believe we are safe, sir.
Okay. Looks like Tottenham still doesn't have a manager yet. Looks like Arsenal is announcing that their loanees are going back home, so no Martin Odegaard just yet staying at Arsenal. Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that Ronald Koeman will remain at Barcelona. That was expected to be announced today. Going to continue, I think there are some conditions is what's being reported out of the Barcelona press, but he will be staying. La Stampa is reporting that Antonio Conte's Tottenham contract could be close to €20 million per season.
Wow.
Good grief.
Well, because, wasn't Mourinho's almost twice that? It was some incredible number.
Yeah, it was something of, I don't think it was twice that. That would feel even more obscene. I don't think Conte would take half of what Mourinho was making. I would think he'd be fighting that, but who knows? EFC Bros asked about Everton, and I don't know what direction they go. And I think Nuno would be a bad hire for them. Eddie Howe would be the one that I would be intrigued by, and I'd also be intrigued by Frank Lampard. I've said that before. I think that could be a very interesting hire, but does Everton feel the pressure because they tried to go big with Carlo Ancelotti? He left. Do they feel like they have to go big? I don't think any of those are big. Howe or Lampard's big because of what he did as a player. It's not big as a manager. That might be the way you bridge the gap. I don't know if Eddie Howe or Nuno gets the excitement for Everton to replace Ancelotti. I don't know. It's a tough spot for Everton to be in, perfectly honest. It's a very difficult spot.
They have the $1 billion owner, and does the $1 billion owner want to try to splash the cash and bring somebody in, or do you bring in a manager with a particular set of values and then splash the cash on the players that will help that manager out? That's the question.
Not sure. Tommy, I have no idea where Spurs is getting this money from. I have no idea how they're pulling this off because it's not just going to be pay Antonio Conte a lot of money and probably pay Harry Kane more money to keep him, and they're going to have to pay Son more money, and they're going to have to pay Paratici money to come in and run this thing. Then they're going to have to spend money on more players as well. Yeah. So we will see where it goes with Spurs. All right, we're going to wrap everything up today with our weekly check-in on the USL Championship, and here we go.
Welcome to Soccer Down Here's coverage of the USL Championship. Jason and I will give you a peek at what happened midweek, give you a look at what's going to happen on the weekend through the standings, power rankings, and such for a very, very busy time in USL Championship. But first, we're going to catch up with our guest this week, and it was a bit of a unique situation in catching up with Wilmer Cabrera for Rio Grande Valley FC, the Toros. He was on his way to training. He was on his way to weight training. They were going to have practice later on in the afternoon, and we caught up with him in his car. His son was driving, so everything was done very safely, but it was good to catch up with Coach Cabrera and find out everything going on there at RGVFC with their hot start and what it's like for him to be down there in the Four Counties. So here is the interview. Now it's time to catch up with our friends in the Central Time Zone, head coach and sporting director of the Toros of RGVFC, Wilmer Cabrera. Coach, thanks for hanging out with us here on Soccer Down Here.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for the invitation.
All right, so looking at things right now, you're a handful of matches in a very tough Mountain Division. After 5 matches, how do you think things are for RGV this season so far?
It's been very good for us so far because as of right now, we're on top of the Mountain Division. We have won our 3 home games, and we just lost 1 game away, and we had the chance to tie our derby, the last game that we have played. So it's been pretty good so far.
When you look at this Mountain Division, it's you guys, San Antonio FC, who you just ended up with the draw with last time out, New Mexico United, El Paso, Austin, Colorado Springs, and Real Monarchs that are attached to RSL. When you look at this Mountain Division, what stands out to you about the competition?
It's no doubt we have three or four top teams in the whole USL Championship. They have proved that the past few years in terms of consistency and in terms of being solid teams. So I believe we have the toughest group in the USL Championship.
When it comes to your side, I know that it'll take a while for things to get to full song to where everyone is comfortable and they're out there doing as opposed to thinking and then doing. Where do you think your team is right now in that process of becoming comfortable with what you're trying to implement when it comes to your philosophy there at Rio Grande Valley?
I don't think we're even at 30% of what we're trying to accomplish and work on. Make sure that we can go through the impose ourselves or the implement do. It takes a while. I would say it's going to have at least half of the season for us to, and for the players to understand, to make sure that we're on the same page to do that.
When it comes to someone who might remember your time in other places as a coach, how would you describe your philosophy to someone who hasn't seen it and is getting the chance to see it for the first time there at RGV?
What we try to do is we try to give the players the best tools for them to express themselves on the field, analyzing and understanding that we don't want to impose a formation or a style of play. We want them to tell us what is the best style of play that fits to the players and adapt to the players. So we are trying to give them what they are good at it. So that's kind of what we try to do with our staff.
How difficult is that for a player to to get adjusted to things and trust in themselves in as much responsibility as you give them as a coach when it comes to what you want them to do out there when it comes to philosophy? How difficult is it for a player to trust in themselves with what you're trying to get them to do?
It only depends of the player himself. Like if the players, I said to the players, it's impossible to help someone that doesn't want to be helped. Now, if they want to be helped and they believe in what we do, it's going to be easier to work. And most of the players, they have the tendency to understand that. But some quicker, some older, it takes a little bit more time. But mostly, I would say I've been fortunate to find that the players they want to be helped, and they just want to play well. They just want the good results, and it's easy to connect with them in that aspect.
When you see a player after all of the teaching and the convincing and the understanding, when you finally get to see a player and that light comes on for them and they finally get what has been taught and what's been presented to them, what's it like for you to see that joy come out in a player?
It's fantastic, and it's been reflected how they play and how they practice, especially how they practice, because games are tough. But when you go to the field to practice every day, and then you notice that the players, you don't need to push or to talk too much, because they already have the mentality, the intensity, and the attitude to work hard and to enjoy. Then it's when we notice, or when I notice, okay, we're on the same page, we're having fun, and they're having fun.
Wilmer Cabrera, head coach and sporting director of RGVFC, the Toros, hanging out with us here on Soccer Down Here as we look at the USL Championship this week. What attracted you to this particular job and being down there in the four counties?
A lot of things. First, that I worked here before, and it was a great experience because that was the first year for the team. Second, the fact that I know the owner, and I know how everyone over here, they wanted to just to change things in a positive way, and I wanted to help that with that project, because obviously one thing was different at working before, that Houston Dynamo was running everything from Houston basically, and now the new chapter is the club here from the Valley. We have to do everything. So I wanted to be part of this chapter, and I wanted to help with that chapter, just to make things right and to do right things.
For someone who has never seen the soccer environment there, what kind of a soccer hotbed, what kind of a soccer environment, what is the fabric of soccer in that particular part of Texas?
Well, they're very passionate because of the heritage of obviously the community. Most of the community, they have Mexican heritage, and they're very passionate and attracted to soccer in their bloods, in their family heritage. So it's easy. It is easy in that aspect, because they all love soccer. They're all passionate about soccer. But it needs to be with the concept of, yes, this is United States, and this is the style of league and soccer that we play crossing the border.
What's it like to be, I guess, one of the people at the forefront of sharing that message, where you're dealing with not just one side of the border, but two sides of the border. What's it like to be there to be able to share in this message and present it the way that you're able to in this situation?
Oh, it's been really positive because they want to do well. They are proud of how the people here at the Valley work, the four counties. Everyone here is dedicated to work to make sure that, everything is well done, right. And they're proud of this region. So we have to make sure that the team reflects that feeling, that characteristic of the people.
What about on the youth side and the participation side of the sport? How is it not just attached to the team itself that you're a part of, but from the high school side, the youth side? What is that playing environment like for those that play the sport in addition to come and watch the Toros play?
Well, it's been very good because the academy, the development of the soccer here in this region has been very, very positive and outstanding. Having, affiliation with Major League Soccer Academy or the Development Academy before, and now with the USL Academy, all this has been improving a lot, and it's been exposing our kids and our young talented players to the rest of not only the state but also the country, and it's been pretty good.
When you look at the team that you have with you so far this season, I mean, you've got guys like Christian Sorto, Elvis Amo, Juan Asokar, Juan Kuzain, folks here in the Southeast. Remember Babacar Njai with his time from Atlanta United too. When you look at this roster so far, what has pleased you the most about this group of players that you've gotten to? I know we're only 5 matches in, but what has pleased you the most about this offensive talent that you've got?
The way they work, the way they want to learn, the way they want to improve, and they want to be successful. They're committed with the project, and that also shows how professional they are and how lucky I am to have good professionals, because it's not easy to find that kind of mentality. And I'm happy and I'm proud and I'm lucky and I'm blessed that so far they've been very professionals. They've been, very good, disciplined, and they're committed. So that's why I believe, and as I have told them, that if we've been doing what we've been doing, it's because of them, the way they are committed with everything.
This year, you've got a full season with a USL Championship, and they have the crossover ideas this year, where you're not necessarily just locked into your half of the bracket. You're getting crossover matchups this season. This upcoming weekend, you've got a trip to Boca Raton to take on the Miami FC, not just a Miami FC, but the Miami FC. Might be a little too early for study hall, but when you look at the Miami FC, what are some of your early thoughts about this matchup coming up on the weekend?
It's going to be a very challenging game. It's going to be a very tough game, no doubt. They're very good. They're very, very skillful and talented players. It's a team that does very well, especially at home. And for us, it's going to be a tough, but at the same time, a fantastic experience to make sure that we continue growing and we continue getting stronger as a team and getting exposed ourselves to our level. What kind of level we have? Okay, we're gonna expose that to the Miami FC.
3-1-1 Rio Grande Valley FC going up against the Miami FC out of the blocks at 3-2. Coach, thanks for hanging out with us here and pulling back the curtain on everything going on down there in the 4 counties. We'll be keeping an eye on everything with the Toros this season. Thanks for being a part of things here at SDH. We'll be keeping an eye and catch up with you soon.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and hopefully we continue talking sooner than later.
John, you're muted.
That's what I get. Once again, thanks to everybody who puts these segments together for us every single week. Thanks to Rio Grande Valley FC for helping us get Wilmer Cabrera to catch up with everything in a very, very tough division there in the USL Championship, and they're off to a hot start at 3-1-1, Jason.
They're 5th in the USL Championship power rankings that did come out yesterday before the games last night. We'll get into that here in a second. Tampa Bay kept the top spot. Phoenix Rising moved up a spot into second. El Paso dropped a spot into third. Indy 11, one of the bigger movers, jumping 3 spots to number 4 overall. RGV 5. Lou City dropped a couple after their loss to Indy. They are 6th. They get ready to come to Kennesaw to face Atlanta United 2 this weekend. San Antonio in 7th. New Mexico falling 3 spots to 8th. Tulsa remained in 9th. That's probably going to be different next week. And Birmingham jumped up 6 spots after their 2 wins last week, one of them against Atlanta United 2. They are in 10th. The Miami FC jumped up 6 spots as well to 11th. Last night in action, OKC rescued a point late at Indy, which was a surprise because OKC really has not been all that impressive this year. 1-1 draw for them. Pittsburgh won a 3-2 shootout at Loudoun United. Tampa Bay Rowdies won their 5th straight, 1-0 versus New York Red Bulls 2. Sporting Kansas City 2. It was 1-1 at halftime. Then they blew Tulsa out of the water in the second half. They won 4-1. USL After Dark madness late in Sacramento. Oakland Roots and Sacramento Republic finished 3-3. Tonight, El Paso goes to Austin to face the Bold. What did you take out of last night's action, John?
Well, first and foremost, that OKC goes on the road and gets a point at Michael Carroll. I thought that was big. And, you know, we're used to looking at Pittsburgh as a very tight defensive side. They get into a 5-goal shootout at Segra. Tampa Bay keeps on rolling. There's a reason they're at the top of the power rankings. And, I mean, honestly, that shocker from Sporting Kansas City 2 and FC Tulsa, I mean, you got to wonder what's going on with FC Tulsa. It was 4 in that one, 3 of them in the second half against Sporting Kansas City 2. They give up 5 to Atlanta United 2. And there's some serious things that have to be figured out with Michael Ency and FC Tulsa. And then the Sacramento Republic Oakland Roots match, you know, it was here's how this one laid out. Back and forth all night long. 19th minute goal to make it 1-0 for Sacramento. Then Oakland scores 2 in 14 minutes to go up 2-1. That's what it was at the half. Sacramento scores 2 in 8 minutes to go up 3-2. And then, actually, take that back. It was 3 on the board for Oakland in the back and forth. So the goal in the 60th for Sacramento, goal in the 66th for Oakland, then the tire at 3-3 in the 68th for Sacramento Republic. So absolute craziness last night at Hard Health. And, you know, you look at those and it's just USL Championship After Dark to me. I think it's going to be a must watch. Obviously, you have to be acquainted with folks for the crossover games from the west to the east this year. But for matchups like we saw last night with that 3-3 with a young club in Oakland Roots in USL Championship, an established club with some new acquisitions for Sacramento Republic. Obviously, craziness in Sacramento late last night.
We're going to run through the divisions really quick. The top 4 get into the postseason in all the divisions. And it's still early, and teams have played a differing number of games, but we're starting to see a few storylines emerge. Red Bulls, too, in the Atlantic are struggling this year, 4 losses out of 7. Tampa Bay Rowdies, 5-0, perfect record. They've only given up 2 goals on the year. They are pacing the Atlantic. The Miami FC, 3 wins, 2 losses. They're in second on 9 points through 5. Hartford Athletics only played 3 times. They haven't lost yet. 2 wins out of the 3. They're a team to watch as they continue to grow. Pittsburgh Riverhounds, we know they're going to be hanging around. They've scored 7, they've given up 7. They're 2-2-1. They're right there in the thick of it. Charlotte Independence is about the same. Only they played one less game, but 2 wins, 2 losses, 5 goals for, 5 goals against. Very, very even. Loudoun's a bit of a wild card. Charleston's been really disappointing to start the season. 1 loss, 2 draws. They have 2 points. They've only played 3 times, but they've got some ground to make up in the Atlantic to catch up to Charlotte and Pittsburgh. And Charlotte is one of those teams that has put something on Charleston. Battery have some catching up to do.
Yeah, it was 3-0 early part of the season for Charlotte Independence. Team of the week, Bruno Lapa, someone that we got to see up close and personal with Birmingham Legion. He ends up as player of the week. John Polskamp, some familiar names that have run through Team of the Week for Week 6. John Polskamp, who got some time with the first team in goal for Sporting Kansas City 2. Adrian Dispay, one of the folks who's helping out Wilmer Cabrera there at RGV, is on the back line. Jack Metcalf, a familiar name for Atlanta United and Atlanta United 2 fans on the back line from San Diego Loyal. Santi Moar once again makes an appearance for Phoenix on the front line. Johnny Bolivar for Loudoun is there as well on the front line. So strong team of the week there with some familiar names for Atlanta United 2 and SDH listeners.
Yeah, there were 3 other divisions we were going to hit as well really quickly before we jumped into that, but that's okay. Indy and Birmingham are on 10 points in the Central at the top. Tulsa careening out of control with 2 straight losses. They're in 3rd place with 9. Atlanta United 2 with 8. Lou City coming to town this weekend with 7. Sporting Kansas City 2 now with the big win last night. They're on 6. OKC Energy, yeah, they've played 7 times. They've only lost 3 of those. They haven't won yet, but they've got 4 draws. They're hanging around. Even Memphis at the bottom, 2 draws out of 3. The Central might be the most competitive division in the USL Championship this year, and every game has a little bit of extra spice to it. Jack Collison's first game in charge of Atlanta United 2 this weekend against Lou City is one team on one side of the playoff line. The other team that was expected to be on that side is not. They're going to come in trying to make up some points. They've played 2 less games, but Lou City's going to come in after a loss to Indy, after a somewhat slow start. And look, there's questions about Louisville City. Their manager left after game 1, and we never got an answer out of what happened there.
Nope. And
since then, it's 1 win, it's 1 loss, it's 1 draw. Is Lou City going to be there at the end of the season? I don't know. We're going to get a sense of it when we see them firsthand this weekend, Sunday night, 7:30 at Fifth Third Bank Stadium. Mountain Division, we talked to Wilmer Cabrera. His team leads it, RGV on 10, San Antonio on 8, New Mexico, 2 wins, 2 losses, a draw. A little up and down for New Mexico. They're on 7. El Paso's on 5. They haven't lost yet, but they've only played 3 times. Austin's on 4, just outside of that mix. Colorado Springs, 1 win, 2 losses. Real Monarchs, a very slow start for them, 2 losses and 2 draws. And then out further west in the Pacific, it's Phoenix Rising, 4 wins out of 5. They lead it. LA Galaxy 2 has played more games than anybody else, 3-2-2 so far. They're on 11 points. Tacoma, the Seattle Sounders affiliate, very good start for them. 2 wins out of 3, a draw in the other one. They're on 7 points through 3. Sacramento, 2-2-1, very even. They're in the 4 spot. Oakland, 1-1-1 through 3. They're showing they can compete at this level. Orange County, couple of losses, 1 win. Really slow start for San Diego, although they did get a win in their last one, their first win of the season. 4 losses out of 5. And the Las Vegas Lights, now with their new relationship with LAFC, 0-4. They've only scored 3 goals in 4 games, and more importantly, they've conceded 15. Not a good start for Las Vegas.
No, action this weekend. We got 1 game tonight, 9 o'clock on ESPN+. Austin Bold at Bold Stadium is hosting El Paso Locomotive. You mentioned Charleston. Charleston is in one of those East-West crossover games at Patriots Point on Friday night. Los Dos make the trip all the way from Los Angeles to Charleston to take on the Battery. This weekend, you mentioned Charlotte Independence. They get a big test at American Legion Memorial on Saturday night at 7 as Tampa Bay comes to town. Hartford Athletic Red Bulls 2. And you've been talking about things inside the Atlanta United division. Indy 11 at Michael Carroll gets Memphis 901 coming to town. And can Vegas turn it around? Can they post something on the board? They've got a game at Cashman, 10:30 on Saturday night. Tacoma comes to town. San Diego goes to Phoenix, and they go to the Rising Soccer Complex as well Sunday. FC Tulsa, the plot continues to thicken with them. They go to Birmingham, and so they'll take on the Legion. Austin on the quick turn. Opportunity for points for Pittsburgh, with Austin playing tonight and then turning around to play Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening at Highmark. And then we talked to Coach Cabrera about their game against the Miami FC, and the last one on the board this weekend is Atlanta United 2, hosting Lou City at 7:30 at the Fraction.
And teams are not at full strength right now. That needs to be understood because of the quality of players coming in to USL Championship and USL League One, and we'll do a little bit of crossover on that as well. 28 players from the Championship and from League One, one from the USL Academy with Queensbridge, who hasn't started yet, have been called up for international play, for World Cup qualifiers, for international exhibitions in this current window. It's a credit to the level of play rising in the USL Championship and USL League One. The Miami FC, who has that game with RGV, 5 players selected, 3 joining Jamaica, who Jamaica had an issue with their exhibition that was going to be played in Japan. So I'm wondering how this could affect the Miami FC this weekend, because that ended up not happening. There was some issues with differences in protocols being followed, and that friendly ended up being canceled, because one group of Jamaican players followed the protocols that the Japanese Federation wanted. Another group didn't, and then weren't going to be allowed to come in, and it was a mess. So Speedy Williams, Lamar Walker, Rashawn Anglin, all were called up for Jamaica. Will they be back for Miami this weekend? We'll have to wait and see. Jamaica also had Junior Flemings, who had been called up, and we did see him this weekend for Birmingham against Atlanta. Kevon Lambert from Phoenix. Puerto Rico had a number of players from both USL Championship and USL League One that were called up. They had their big win. 6 players from USL clubs made the trip to play for Puerto Rico. El Salvador, one player who's been key for Tulsa, Joaquin Rivas, away with El Salvador right now. You've got players representing Cuba. You've got players representing Curacao, the Dominican Republic, Grenada, Guam, Dallas J from the Greenville Triumph, Haiti, Liberia, Othello Ba, also from the Miami FC, St. Kitts and Nevis from South Georgia Tormenta, Raheem Summersall, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Kyle Edwards from RGV is away with them, Trinidad and Tobago, 3 players, Shannon Gomez from Sacramento, Nabil Hackshaw from Indy, Dre Fortune from Memphis 901, and another the Miami FC player, Billy Forbes, away with the Turks and Caicos. 28 pros and 1 academy player called up for international play out of USL teams.
Very strong stuff. And it's the question that we're going to be looking at with Major League Soccer. We're seeing it with USL Championship and League One, especially in Greenville, where you lose Dallas J for international duty, although I think there is a gap in the Triumph schedule. What do those teams look like with these absences, and how did the coaches sit there and rework their lineups and the matchups coming up during this international window with the players that could be lost? And so the level of competition, I want to see how the rosters, when they are moved, and the starting 11s, I want to see how different these 11s are going into these matchups with these 28 players on international duty.
The other news of the day, we mentioned it earlier, Jack Collison hired by Atlanta United to lead Atlanta United 2. Tony Annan has left to go to his new job at the University of South Carolina. Collison, his first senior appointment as a manager, he's been with the U17s. Same progression Stephen Glass went through. And Stephen Glass had been with the U17s. He took over ahead of the 2019 season. Was here through 2020, then was bumped up to the first team when Frank DeBoer left. Jack Collison, following that exact same progression with the attachment to the academy, and a lot of the players that when he joined the U17s in August of 2019, a lot of those guys are now starting to factor in to Atlanta United too. So he's going to have a lot of familiarity with your Will Rileys, Caleb Wileys, et cetera, et cetera. we're going to hopefully get a chance to talk to Jack Collison here very soon, but he will be on the touchline for Atlanta United 2 and Lou City 7:30 Sunday evening from Fifth Third Bank Stadium. It's also on ESPN Plus if you can't join us out at the Fraction. That's going to close out the USL Championship schedule for the weekend.
For Jason, I'm John. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks once again to our friends at Rio Grande Valley FC, the Toros, for letting us talk to head coach and sporting director Wilmer Cabrera about what's going on there with their hot start at 3-1-1. That is SDH's look at the USL Championship.
And that's it for us. That's SDH for a Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up everything from U.S. and Honduras tonight. Again, we're going to have a watch-along tonight on Twitch for that game, USA-Honduras. There could be a lot of anxious watching of that one because I think Honduras is going to make the U.S. sweat for that. We'll break it down tomorrow morning. Mike Conte will join us as well. If there are any very interesting things to talk about out of that U.S. game, which it's very likely there will be, we'll get Bart Keeler back on the line for an appearance as well, and be on the lookout for his content. There's already an article up at soccerdownhere.net. There will be a preview podcast popping up later today, and then I'm sure there will be review stuff coming very quickly. So thanks for hanging out with us today. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back for the watch-along this evening. Mucho plati, y'all.
Mucho plati, y'all.